Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Critical Podcast. My name is Jimmy Good, and I'm your host. And joining me this week, Jack from Theme Park History. Jack, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good today. Thank you for having me on. How are you doing yourself?
I'm doing just fine, man. You nailed that. Usually, I've got another podcast buddy who's usually on here, and I usually ask him how he's doing, and he normally is just like, "Hello, Jimmy," and then that's like it. But you had a very nice response there, so thank you. I hope he watches this and learns.
If you're willing to have me on, I should be prepared at least for the intro. That's how I feel. The rest of it, you never know what's going to happen. But if I can nail the intro, I'll feel much better about the rest of this talk.
Yes. Oh, that's excellent. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us here. If this is your first time, we like to talk about video games, TV, movies, anything in entertainment, theme parks, because, I mean, I'm a huge theme park guy. And obviously, we have a wonderful guest on this week to talk about theme parks and theme park history. And I have to say this at the top, and we'll probably say it in the middle or probably at the end, too. Please, if you get a chance, go check out Theme Park History on YouTube. Fantastic videos, so good, really comprehensive, and a really fun throwback to the past with some of these attractions, talking about the inception of some of them and the marketing and all of this stuff. And it's really cool to see even just like the weird little dumb McDonald's ads you see that were like trying to hold up this ride or get people to come in. So please definitely go check out Theme Park History. I love his stuff. I really am a big fan. So that's why I'm excited that you said you'd come be on the show so I can just kind of geek out a little bit. But yes, so before we get into the news of the week, Jack, I want you to tell people, give them a baseline. Besides theme parks and stuff, what do you like? What kind of pop culture are you into?
Well, besides being around theme parks whenever I had the chance to as a kid, I think the other three things that I focused on were video games, basketball, and wrestling. That's what my parents kind of watched and they played as kids, and growing up, that's what they introduced me to, and that's what I've kind of been around. The theme park thing, not really as much. They would, if you go to Florida and you have kids, my parents were always like, "You gotta go to Disney, you gotta go to Universal," and that kind of became my own thing. But honestly, it's been throughout everything. It's like I've had almost every console. I've been watching basketball for such a long time, and like same thing with wrestling, through the goods and the bads.
Cool. Okay, nice. So I obviously video games what we probably align with the most. What it was like the beginning for you, and where are you at currently?
I could tell you specifically because I'm still reminded by my mom about it. The first console I had was the Nintendo system as a 3-year-old, and the first game I had, I don't think people are going to believe it. You gotta have to go look it up. Is Mickey Mouse's ABC Safari Hunt.
Oh my gosh,
that's
amazing.
So even back as a 3-year-old, Disney had me hooked. Basically, the gist of the game was you play as Mickey through different levels, and you have to capture 3 letters that spell out a word. And I don't know why I played it so much, but I did. But you know what? My thing is, my parents probably thought video games would be a way to learn, and they probably didn't realize what video games would become today.
Sure.
So, it's like I had that, and I had there was a Sesame Place game where it was like counting and math. So they were like, if we're gonna probably have them play games, it have to be educational. Boy, were they wrong. Were they wrong? By now, they're very wrong. So
yeah, it's definitely it's shifted a bit, or at least the education games are like we have no idea what they are because we don't hear about them, right?
Yeah,
they're out there, but we haven't seen them.
They're probably like, I don't know, iPad apps now that like they're aimed towards kids, right? But it's like back in the day, it's like, no, we got games based on Sesame Place, Mickey, you can learn something. And then they had games out of the blue like MC Kids, like McDonald's advertisement everywhere in that game.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh.
So you had games like that, and then I'd obviously playing games like Super Mario and the first Zelda game. So there's a lot there, and that's where I started. Now I have every console imaginable. I have the Xbox One X, the PlayStation 4 Pro, the Switch.
Whoa, nice.
Listen, I've always been a console guy, but that's because that's just how I was born on and raised on controllers, not keyboards.
Yes, sir. So, me too. I was the same way. I'm sorry. The only things I ever played on like PC really when I was younger were like Disney tie-in games. So like the Hunchback of Notre Dame and like Lion King. Like I played a lot of those. It was like Spot, the animal in the brush with like Lion King and stuff. And like Hunchback was like throwing barrels down at like these guys trying to like scale the cathedral. And like that's what I played there. But I'm with you there too. I'm kind of I don't have the Xbox One X or like PS4 Pro though. That's
Yeah,
pretty nice.
yeah, you're not missing out on anything because I had the Xbox One and then I had the PlayStation 4 and then my TV broke and because I had the insurance on it, uh, whoever I bought it from was willing to cover the costs and they gave me back everything. And I was like, at this point, I already got back the money from my old TV. I'll just add the difference and I'll get a 4K. And everybody said if you get 4K, you got to get these things because the games look better, and they do. But honestly, it doesn't bring anything to the table. It's not like you need it. If you want to play a system, you can get an Xbox for a PlayStation 4. You're not missing out on much.
Sure, yeah. So for you in the past, like maybe a couple of months or maybe even year, is there any game that has like risen to the top for you personally that you're like, oh man, this game was like my game of the year for 2018?
Well, for 2018, it was tough because it came down to two. It was God of War and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But I feel like after playing both of them like twice, I'm like, I give the nod to God of War. It's
Okay.
not that Spider-Man was great because we finally got the Spider-Man game that everybody wanted since Spider-Man 2 came out like a long time ago on the PlayStation 2. Fully swinging, a really interesting story, full range of everything, free roam. But God of War was such a good story. I liked the combat a lot, and it was a nice rebirth of the entire franchise in itself. Not that one, two, three, and the side games weren't that great. It's just like that game, they just made it so much more than just like a beat 'em up game. It was like strategy, placing, story was very interesting, and a lot of callbacks to the original three too. It was just great. I really
Yeah.
liked that game a lot.
Yeah, well, it definitely those two games that you brought up there, they were contenders for our Game of the Year awards. So I totally agree with you. I feel like Spider-Man, I thought was going to come in and kind of swoop up a lot of the love that God of War got because it came out a little bit later, a little closer to award season. But I still feel like at the end of the day, people kept just going back to God of War. And even though Spider-Man is incredible and fantastic, I don't think it did anything like new like God of War did to really
Yeah,
shake people up. It was just like this is like the best Spider-Man game ever. But like God of War was like, hey, those games that nobody really took seriously, like we're taking it really seriously now,
yeah,
and
yeah.
people were like, whoa, like people noticed
Yeah.
that, sort of
I
thing.
I kind of my friend made the kind of assessment that I agreed with Spider-Man. It kind of feels like the first Arkham Batman game, where it's like
Yep.
really good stuff that you never imagined you see in a Batman game, but they can improve on it. And that's
Mhm.
what we'll probably see in the next Spider-Man game. They're going to improve on it vastly, figure out the repetitious side missions, certain things that kind of made it boring at times. They'll figure out what went wrong with that game and they'll vastly improve on it.
Oh, for
And
sure.
but I mean, we're probably God knows how long we are from those games coming out.
I wonder too, because I think like right after they finished it in the DLC, I think Sony they were like, "Hey, guess what you're making now, Insomniac?" It's like no
Yeah,
more Ratchet and Clank, no. It's just like you're making the
yeah,
next Spider-Man. Like get to it. Yeah, I just call it Spider-Man City. Like just make Arkham City, but Spider-Man. Just make it like New York is in a constant state of peril, and Spidey's like, I just can't fight everybody tonight. Like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, that
Yeah,
would be great.
I mean, they set themselves up story wise at the end of that game for much more to come.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
it's just like you could do so much with that character, and like you said, a universe. And there's a lot of teases to the Marvel universe itself in that game. I don't want to say you get to play as other characters, but you still have a lot there that they haven't even tapped into yet. And I'm very excited to see what they can do with that franchise going forward.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I remember Amazing Spider-Man back on PlayStation 2, I think it was. And that was like the hyper stylized, very cartoony
Yeah,
looking one. And that one had like Wolverine in the beginning. You were playing as Venom, you fought Wolverine, and then like as Spider-Man, you could race the Human Torch and stuff like that. Even though it wasn't like huge and ingrained in the game, it made it feel like it was a universe that you like Spider-Man was just a part of. And like even
yeah.
having those characters like, working with Iron Man on a mission or Thor on something or Hulk, like that would be so insane and amazing. It's just like I'm waiting for that Avengers game. Maybe that's the reason why they kind of held back on showing anybody in Spider-Man. They're like, hey, there's like, Avengers Tower, but like we're not going to talk about the
Yeah.
Avengers really. So it's like we just need that game. We just need to know what that thing is. It's like
They've been how many years has that game been like teased, right?
like
At
two
this
or
point,
three. It's been a
and
while. It's been
and
so long.
everybody thought it would come out this E3 with their Square Enix is producing it, right? So like, oh, they have their presentation, nothing. It's
Yep.
like I get it. It has to be this year, right? It got to be this year. Otherwise, you just assume that the project's dead and gone, or
Yeah.
whatever comes out is not going to be as good as we expect it to be. So
Yeah, I remember when the Russos were going to go present at the Game Awards, and everybody thought that like they were going to come and premiere something, and was like, "Oh my gosh, this would be the perfect time to do it." And I wonder too if it's like Disney saying like, "Hey, let's just have Endgame come out first, and then we're going to do the games for a bit."
you know
Like
what?
I wonder.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea on their part. That probably makes sense because they got so much riding with Endgame coming out. It's
Yeah,
going to be such a big success for them. So let's have everybody have that Avenger post hype, and then we'll definitely build on top of our Marvel universe from there. So
yeah,
that does make sense.
Yeah, that and not tied into the movies at all, which I think that's what's so good about this Spider-Man game is we've had some decent tie-ins, like Spider-Man 2, obviously, but like I think not having the shackles of any like saying, oh, we got to follow these plot points, and then also throwing some random villains that weren't in the movie in here too. I think kind of just standing or stepping away from that whole thing is the smartest thing you can do, and I think that's what they're hoping to do with this Avengers game. They're going to be like, it's completely nothing to do with the Avengers, but it's still the same team, like going off and fighting whatever it would be. Yeah, but I still want to see about that. And Final Fantasy VII, like it was kind of like we're like, oh, Square's doing a press conference. It's got to be like both those games, right? For like 10 minutes each, and it's like, nah, neither of them. Like,
It's like you'll get Kingdom Hearts 3 and you're
yeah,
gonna like it,
yeah,
and that's it. Even if it's the same stuff that we've been showing from the last year and a half. Here you go. Maybe a little bit here and a couple of minutes of new footage. That's it. But even that being said, the game came out and people really liked it. But
yeah,
I do agree with you. It makes sense from a Disney standpoint. We got a lot of money we can make from Endgame. Let's not hurt every other Marvel franchise by releasing stuff close to it. Let's wait until it comes out and then here comes the rest of it, and you're all going to buy it up because you know you love it.
yep.
So
That's when the Marvel DLC will show up in Kingdom Hearts, and then the Final Fantasy DLC will show up in Kingdom Hearts. It's like
don't
eventually down the
you,
line.
you're already jinxing it. It's going to happen now.
I
You said
swear,
it. That's
I
it.
know. And the only reason I said it is they actually just came out with some news recently saying that there's going to be free DLC in the form of updates, but there's also going to be some paid DLC, which it's like if they do Final Fantasy paid DLC at this point, I feel like that would be really scummy because like those characters probably should have been in the game like to
Right.
start with. But if it's like Marvel or Star Wars, like I could kind of see where they would be like, all right, let's just like make a 10-hour Star Wars side thing that you can
Yeah.
do.
I would say they would save it for another game, but I don't even remember how long the gap was between
It's like,
2 and 3. Forget
yeah,
it. If they're gonna
yeah,
say, yeah, we'll save it for the next one. No.
exactly. Like
You're gonna wait
40
another
years
10, yeah, 40 years for the next game to come out.
just keeps going
Leave-
up.
That's it.
That would be horrible. Yeah, I think it was like 10 or 15 years between 2 and 3 where they had like all those spin-offs. It was like I can't keep it straight, guys. I love you, Kingdom Hearts, though. I really do. Yeah, okay, cool. So wait, did you play Kingdom Hearts, by the way?
No, I have the for the PlayStation 3, I think like the collection of like 1, 2, and there's another game in between. I tried playing the first one
Okay,
and I just never could get into it.
sure.
I'm not like outside of like I guess Fallout and Skyrim, I've never really been a big fan of the RPG series.
Okay, cool.
It's
Fair enough.
it's it's just I like the games, but honestly, there's only a handful of them that can keep me interested for a long time, and
Sure.
not that I don't like leveling up and, doing those side missions and whatnot. It just comes down to the gameplay itself, and Kingdom Hearts was okay at times, but I felt like it got repetitious. But that's the first game,
Yeah.
and I never really dived into any of the side games for the second one. I think it's a great concept to put Disney characters in that universe, but I never found the gameplay to be interesting enough to play it. That doesn't
Sure.
mean I won't down the line try it, but it's
Yeah.
like I don't have much time to play games anymore. So it's like that game will take up a lot of my time, and I don't know if I can invest in it.
Yep. Yeah, and that's totally fine. I think there's like this kind of like perception, unfortunately, in being a game enthusiast, but like where you say like, oh, I tried this thing and I didn't like it, where a lot of people are worried that people are just gonna like attack you immediately. But for me, it's just like if it didn't speak to you, it's like any piece of art. Like if you don't like it, that's totally fine. Like you don't
Yeah,
have to indulge in it too. You don't have to be like, I played through all the Kingdom Hearts games to prove that I love video games. It's like, no, that's not true. Like, if you didn't
yeah,
like it, it's like I can see why. Because like when I was
yeah,
younger, I was way more accepting of some of this stuff. But now if I'm like as being older, like going back to the old like first game, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of things nowadays that I would have been like, yep, no thanks. Like
yeah.
I don't like how this controls at all. Like Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get that. Uh, cool, man. So you're like obviously Sony had a big year last year, so that's why it's easy to put like God of War and Spider-Man up there. But do you have any type of allegiance, or you sound like you kind of have it all, so you don't necessarily have to play any favorites?
You mean favorites like to a company like console wise?
Sure, yeah,
Uh, I play more on the PlayStation than I do the Xbox, but that's because I have more friends that have PlayStations.
exactly.
So
Yep.
I'll never say an allegiance. It doesn't matter if it's a console or anything else, because you're shorthanding yourself. You're like, I only play the Xbox.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, good luck then, because you're never gonna get Spider-Man or God of War or any of those like PlayStation exclusive games on your console. So I don't like you said, that's like something I might have done as a kid in high school.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it's like that's how it was. Now I feel like, yeah, whatever. If there's a game I want for a console, I'll go out and buy it. But I play. It used to be more the 360 because that's what my friends had.
Yep,
And then this new
exactly.
generation came out, and they all bought the PlayStation, and we all play on the PlayStation now. So
Yeah, that's I tell people the same thing too. It's like I primarily play on Xbox just because I have friends on there, but I also have a PlayStation because I really want to play God of War and Spider-Man and like all these other like first party things where I'm like I wouldn't get that otherwise, so it's the only
yeah,
way to do it, which sucks because I feel so bad. Like when Spider-Man came out, I just remember thinking of like all the Xbox people who are like, oh, so into that or can only afford one console because that's a consideration too.
yeah.
That they kind of look at this and they're probably watching the videos and they're like, man, I wish we had something kind of like that over here. Where can we get like a Ghost Rider game or something? Like
Listen, they they had they had Spider-Man, and people were saying, "Well, we have Sea of Thieves." I'm like, they're not the same thing. I
no,
get what you're trying to do, but it's like they're two different type of games. So don't be claiming you got one that they don't have
yeah,
when one might be better than the other, depending
yep.
on your preference of taste.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm hoping that, I always hope with all these things like theme parks too. I'm a huge Disney guy, but I also really want Universal to do really well because it just forces Disney to keep going. Like, I don't want, Xbox or Nintendo or PlayStation to ever get fat and lazy. I want them to always be like, oh, hey, the other guys are doing something pretty cool. Like, and they're kind of forcing us to up our game because who wins when that happens? All of us win. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Competition is not a bad thing because, like you said, we win at the end because each company is trying to one up each other. So whether it's video games or theme parks or phone companies, whatever it is,
Yep.
Apple, Samsung, keep upping it because you know what? At the end of the day, we benefit from it the most.
Yes,
So,
and like I'm not the biggest Harry Potter fan. I enjoy this stuff, but going to see the Wizarding World last year and looking at all the theming and stuff, I just thought, I hope Disney looked at this and said, "All right, for Star Wars, we got to do at least this or a little bit better." Like they looked at all of it and they're like, "Okay, we really got to make sure that this is crazy and cool, just like this is." Because even like like people who aren't even initiated into the Harry Potter stuff, you could just walk around that area and be like, wow, there's a lot going on here. This is really cool. I don't know how big of a Harry Potter fan you are.
I've read the books and watched and seen the movies. I'm not crazy about it. I like the franchise, but I'm not going to say like, oh, it's not like my sister who was really into it, was seeing those movies at midnight. I'm like, I wasn't going that nuts.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
being said, though, for like just talking about it, like Universal getting that franchise in their parks was one of their biggest coups, probably their biggest coup.
Yeah. Oh my
Um,
gosh, for sure.
and you know what? I will say having that in the park, they've done that franchise justice because you can see that the details, the attractions themselves, just everything that involves Harry Potter is really close to what J.K. Rowling wanted.
Oh
And
yeah.
I don't blame them because in order to get that, they probably had to do what she wanted them to do. And
Yep.
that's why when people complain it's too narrow, this and that, and yeah, well, otherwise you weren't going to have that at your park because she was going to say, "See ya, I'll take it somewhere else where I just won't build theme park areas and shows and attractions in general."
Yep.
So, but
Yeah, I wonder if Disney ever thinks like back to that and they think like if we could have, released a little bit of that control that they hold on to so tightly for Harry Potter. At the same time, I'm glad they didn't because again, like I said, this gives Universal like a really amazing card in their hand that Disney will never have, and it just forces Disney to be like, okay, we really got to step it up a notch. And not that Toy Story Land is bad, and I think it really works with the theming, of what it's supposed to be. But I think that like when Star Wars opens up, I think that's what people are gonna like compare, and they'll be like, all right, like they've got Harry Potter World over at Universal and Diagon Alley, but like what's Disney cranking out with Star Wars? Is this matching it, or is it better? Is it more immersive? Like, is the hotel really cool? That's going to be part of all this stuff too. Like, it's going to be nuts, and I hope it's good. I don't know. Are you a big Star Wars fan, Jack?
Seen the movies, but again, it's not like I'm not crazy about it.
Sure.
It must sound crazy to some people. Because you follow theme parks, but you're not interested in Star Wars and everything that happens with the area. I think what they're going to do is, like you said, it's going to be the closest thing they can have to what Harry Potter is for Universal. And you know what? All what they've shown off, all the construction photos and the updates, it looks like it's going to be that.
Yeah.
And I'd love to go, but I am not going when it opens. I'm
Yeah.
going to wait because it was for Toy Story Land and Slinky Dog's Coaster. People were saying it was like a 3.5 hour wait for that attraction.
Yep.
And I'm like, I did 3.5 hours for Potter when it opened that year.
Sure.
And it wasn't worth it because the area was so packed, the ride was broken down, and everything else that was happening. It's like it ruins your experience. And the way with Disney, and you know how their fan bases are, they want to be there for it. Like if it opens in the summer, I'll probably go sometime in the new year afterwards because it might be a little bit quieter. I might not have to wait as long for those attractions, and you might actually be able to enjoy being in that area. That's what it is to me. The biggest thing, you go somewhere and it's overcrowded and you can't move around without somebody being on top of you. It ruins your whole day.
Yep.
So
I completely agree with you. I almost want to go at that time just to go to like the other parks and be able to maybe hopefully get on some of these other rides. Like I'm not a huge Avatar fan, but I wonder how much Star Wars Land opening up will affect some of those ride wait times, cuz like I wouldn't wait more than probably 20 minutes for the Navi River journey. Like that's just me though. Like some people really love that. Or like Flight of Passage, I probably wouldn't wait more than 45 minutes for it. But there's like, 2-3 hour lines pretty consistently. It's like I wonder if any of that will go away. And I'm like, as you can see, I'm a fan of some of the older attractions. So like if there's a walk on for Countdown, I'm gonna be doing that for like a good hour or two. I'm just gonna be
yeah.
like looping back around. I'll be like, yeah, maybe walking on that ride. I'll be like,
Yeah,
yeah,
see, that's actually a good idea because you go to any of the other parks, like you said, all that traffic's there. So you might actually not have to wait that long. I'm surprised so many people are waiting that long for Avatar. Again, it was a very popular movie, but I don't hear anybody talk about it. So
it's
like, are
yeah.
are these are they Avatar fans or are they just theme park fans going for the Avatar ride?
I think, and it's not to throw shade at anybody who goes and waits for these things, because I did one of those mornings, like I went just so I could like walk on basically Flight of Passage and not have to wait there all day. I think it's just the new shiny thing at Disney, man. I don't think these are Avatar fans. I haven't really met anyone who hasn't seen Avatar, but at the same time, I haven't met like an Avatar fan. Like I've met a lot of
Yeah,
people who are just like,
exactly.
they're like, it was a movie. They're like, it was kind of like Pocahontas, and I felt
Yeah,
the same way. I was like, it's fine. I don't think they needed a whole land for it. But Disney, I think, before the Fox acquisition, they're like, what's the next Star Wars going to be? Oh, James Cameron's making like 5 of these things. Let's put it together. But I don't think it's people who are there who are like, I just love the Navi, because like
yeah,
clearly it's
that's
not
what
the
how I feel. It's like, yeah, it's the highest grossing movie. It made a lot of money, but it's like I don't hear anybody talking about the
no.
movie anymore. It's like, yeah, we're getting the sequels, but it's like, does anybody really want sequels?
I don't
It's
I don't know.
again, when you make that much money, I guess, yeah, there has to be. But like I saw it, I thought it was an okay movie, but I was like, I don't think it deserves a sequel. I know it was like the technology used and everything else going in at the time was never seen before, never done before, so that's cool. It's like it's an okay movie.
Yeah.
It's not like something I would go see again in a movie theater. So
Yeah, I wonder if, they're kind of banking on the sequels to still perform pretty well, and then maybe kind of mess with Flight of Passage a little bit with the screen technology, and that way they can interject new things, potentially kind of Star Toursy. Star Tours leads or lends to it so much better with the whole light speed aspect of it. But I could see them doing that because I don't know what you're going to change in Pandora to like, update it with the movies, especially if they take place. I don't know where they're taking place. Maybe these are going to be great films. Maybe I'll love them, but like right now, I can't care any less about Avatar. I was just like, that's great. They're just pulling people away from Everest and Kilimanjaro Safari. I'm like, perfect. Thank you. Like,
yeah, yeah.
more people out of here. Like, get
Yep.
out of here. Like, yeah, but I'm just not a huge fan. Have you ridden both those attractions?
I haven't. I haven't. This is gonna be shocking to people. I haven't been to any of the Disney or Universal theme parks in like 3 years.
Okay, that's fine, dude.
I, but people like you cover theme parks, but you don't have the time to go to theme parks. So it's like I moved, and ever since I moved, none of my family members have the same schedule. So like trying to take time off for vacation is a headache in itself.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I'd like to. I have time off to go. But it's like my sister or my mom or my dad. No, I can't take time off now. And then when they're off, no, I have to work.
Yeah.
So it's like it's always this headache. But the irony of you bringing that up is that I am going to Universal at the end of March for the
Ah,
first
cool.
time in 3 years. So I'm excited, but I'm also a little bit cynical because like I've covered all these attractions. I've covered this park. Am I really going to enjoy these rides now? So I feel
That's
like
super
I'm going to
funny.
go and enjoy it, but at the same time, like I covered this attraction. I know everything about the mummy. I'm not. What else is going to happen now? You know.
That's so
So
funny. So, are you going to both studios and Islands of Adventure?
I'm staying at Portofino Bay.
Okay, cool.
So I'm probably gonna try to go do both parks. I'm only staying for like 5 days,
Okay,
but
cool.
I'm trying to dedicate one of those days to go to a Disney park. So I'm still
Sweet.
trying to figure out like I can go to Magic Kingdom, but I've been there so many times as a kid that I might actually dedicate going to Animal Kingdom to experience the Avatar attractions, and
Yeah,
and 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 Everest because I haven't been on Everest in like 7 years now.
yeah, and you
So
just obviously you just covered it, so
yeah, and I miss that attraction a lot.
yeah, that's one that like I think I appreciate more and more like over time. And I think the coolest thing about Everest is how it fits not only so well within the park, but like just the theme of like both Africa and Asia being like you're actually in Africa and Asia and they take it really seriously.
Yeah,
And it's just like I love that and I appreciate it so much. And you don't get that with most
no,
rides. It's like
I hate to say it, and I probably am wrong on it, but it feels like I have to look it up. But it's like that was like the last original concept attraction they've built in a while now. It's
yeah, you're not
not
wrong.
IP based. I mean, you could say Test Track when they redid it,
Sure.
but it's like I feel like Everest was like the last. Like, okay, we're taking an original concept we thought of, and we're making it into something of our own. I,
Yeah.
I, I maybe Fantasyland, but that is based on movies they did have. But I
Yeah.
feel like Everest was like, okay, we ain't done nothing like this before, and you haven't seen anything from Disney like it, and it turned out to be a really good attraction.
It just makes me wish like that Beastly Kingdom, and I know parts of it went to Universal still, but like the creativity and the kind of breeding love of an IP out of a ride that no one has ever seen or touched before. I'm gonna miss that, and I get that they have to do the Marvel and Star Wars stuff. I totally understand that, but some of the stuff they did, especially like with Everest, like it's just so cool. Like it is, there's nothing quite like it. It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
magical. It's the only place you can experience this thing. You know?
yeah.
Ah,
And like I said, the theming, the whole story behind the area itself is amazing. But even the ride itself, well, people, I've heard people say, well, it's not that really that intense of a roller coaster. Disney's not known for like dueling dragons and the Hulk and any of
yep,
the roller coasters at SeaWorld. So like Everest is their version of it where, and it works well because you don't have to be a roller coaster enthusiast to go on that attraction.
yeah,
And
exactly.
it could be for people like you and me, it could be for kids, it could be for older adults. You can go on and you'll have a good time. You don't have to worry like, oh man, I'm having vertigo after going through like 2 or 3 loops.
Yeah,
It won't bother you in that way. And
yeah.
again,
Oh, for sure.
it's fast and a little bit of a little bit of a steep drop, but it's nothing compared to some of the other roller coasters that people talk about when you go to Florida that you have to go on.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I think the only part that gets me is like the backwards part because I'm just not used to that motion on a roller coaster. I'm just,
That's yeah, that's true. If you go into that attraction blind and you don't know what's going to happen, that takes you for somewhat of a spin.
I think if that's the case and you're with a friend and that's going to happen, try to get the front row. I mean, it's not always the best for the like a roller coaster, but like something about seeing tracks being ripped up and you stopping like on a hill and your friend would just be like, dude, what's happening? Be like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I
Like,
that's a funny story because not for Everest, but for Revenge of the Mummy,
oh,
there's the one scene where you get to the Beatles. I constantly scream about 3 or 4 seconds before the backwards drop happens. and people have no clue what's about to happen, and then they drop backwards, and then they all start panicking, and it's like that's the best part. People are like, what the hell is he screaming for? Oh my god, we just went backwards. Yeah.
That is excellent. Oh, I was going to ask you earlier too. What do you think of the ride vehicle for Harry Potter Forbidden Journey?
I like it a lot.
Okay.
Well, it's a double-edged sword. I think it's very innovative, but anytime I go on Forbidden Journey and I come off, I feel a little bit woozy.
Yeah.
It's not the system itself. There's these certain points in the ride where you feel like you're about to like tip over backwards,
Yep.
and I feel like my for some reason my vertigo just hits its peak right there, and then I get off and I'm a little bit lightheaded, a little bit dizzy for a couple of minutes, but otherwise I'm perfectly fine afterwards. I don't know if that's just because you're going back and forth the whole time, if it's the screen transition and my eyes can't focus on it. I love the system and they should use it more often for more attractions. But I think they got to tone it down a little bit because I just feel nauseous after getting off of it. But I'll still ride it every time because it's an impressive attraction.
Yeah, it is very impressive. I'll give you that. I think it's the mixture for me between the screens of the practical effects and the fact that you're like on the top of a cherry picker. Because I did what I probably shouldn't have done. I only rode it once, but I had to look at like the cars next to me. I was how are they doing this? And I looked at it and I was kind of just like studying it for a second. And it was such a strange device. And I kept thinking, I wish we could have done it. Not that it has to be like Flight of Passage, but I just wish they would have played into the whole broom thing a little more because you're kind of just sitting on like a bench that they just are like, and you're
Yeah.
gonna fly with your bench, and you're like, yeah, I'm flying with a bench. Harry Potter dream achieved. Like, I wish they could have done something more with that, but it is a crazy ride. Like that ride is really
Yeah.
nuts, and I see why they built a castle around it, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's also one of those things too. Like going into it the first time I went on it, not paying attention to YouTube videos or forums or anything about what the story is. The first time you encounter the dragon was like an actual scream for me because it's all screens with a couple of sets here and there. I didn't. So here comes a dragon like roaring at you, and when we went on it, they still had the Dementors working.
Oh,
So
cool.
that was kind of terrifying because the Dementors are pretty close to you
Yeah, they
in
are.
the attraction itself. And I'm like, oh my God, this thing just popped up right beneath my feet. Now it's in my face. So when the attraction was working right off the bat, it was impressive. Still is. But like those moments are like things I still remember because I'm like, holy crap, dragons, Dementors, and I feel a little bit woozy. So it's
Yep.
everything in one.
Yep, I agree with you. I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan, so being over there, one of the weird things I think that Universal could get better about it are their sight lines, and maybe they can't help it, but standing in Jurassic Park, hearing that music, and then looking up and seeing Hogwarts Castle. But I
Oh,
loved going on that ride. I think I did it twice, just because I was like, I got to do it. It hasn't aged super well, but like I've seen like the old videos, where it was like
yeah,
in its heyday with all the effects working. And
yeah,
I remember thinking like, oh gosh, it was still really cool to go in to be in that world because it felt like it for a few minutes. I was like, yeah, I buy this. I buy
yeah.
this. But that ride's been what 20 plus years, 25 years, 20 something years now.
For what?
That's
For Ben Journey?
no Jurassic Park.
Oh, Jurassic Park. Yeah, what 90? Well, it was like 96, I believe, at Hollywood, and now it's not open anymore. Rest in peace. Uh,
Mm, yeah,
so 1999. So 20 years. It's gonna be 20 years. Man,
yeah,
I feel old saying that out loud. That
that's
like
okay.
Hours
Yeah.
of Adventure's 20 years old. So,
Did you ever indulge in that ride? Are you a Jurassic Park man?
uh, I'm a big fan of the franchise. Well, I should say the first three movies. I'm not a huge fan of Jurassic World for a lot of reasons.
That a boy. I agree. I'm right there with you. You're in a
but
happy place.
but I really like the ride, even though it is just the build up to the finale, which is the drop. Still nice to see something that you watched in movies and were like, man, I really wish there was a Jurassic Park, and you get to experience it, especially in the Florida version where it's its entire area dedicated to, you know, the book and the movie itself. Yeah, the ride after this time, after all these years, is kind of broken down and needs the refurb, but I don't think you have to change it over to Jurassic World.
Yeah, I don't know if that just means we're getting like Indominus Rex at the end of this stuff, or like what's gonna
Well,
happen.
the rumor is that the final scene now has the Indominus Rex animatronic fighting the T Rex, and you drop to escape the fight. I'm
Oh,
in my head. That sounds amazing. But if I
Yeah,
get to the park and it's the animatronics the way they are right now, it's not that amazing.
that's
So,
true. Also, I like it's always weird to me to see, and I forget which one it is. It might be the one in Florida. Like the T-Rex kind of swings out, and it's like I don't know, it's like floating midair because they
oh,
have it like on
yeah,
a.
that was
It's like
the Hollywood version.
oh, that's the Hollywood version.
Yeah,
Okay,
the Hollywood version has that, which again is really weird because you can see the T Rex's feet, which you shouldn't, because
yeah,
where the hell's it swinging out of doing that?
it's
Um,
grabbed with its tail. It's prehensile tail that T-Rexes have. We
Pretty
just
much,
didn't know.
it keeps
Uh,
evolving.
yeah, I
Yeah.
unfortunately the one in Florida, we had like one of the times the T-Rex wasn't really working, so it was just kind of like chilling and you could like see it in the back. And like they stopped the ride there once or twice to like tell people to like take off their hats, which was super
Um,
funny. But like it was also really sad because it's like this big crazy moment, and then it's just like all cuts. It's like, excuse me, sir, can you please take off your hat? Yes, sir, please take your hat off. And it was just like,
well, that they have to, because the one time my family went on it, the guy in front of my mom had his hat on, and the hat hit my mom in the face.
oh no.
She was fine. She thought it was hilarious, but the guy was like, "Hey, do you know where my hat went?" It's like, good thing it hit my mom in the face, because if it didn't, you weren't gonna get it back. It was
That's
gonna be
so sad.
stuck floating in the water, and then they would have to shut down the ride probably for 3 hours just to get a fishing net to pick your hat out.
That's
So
true. Yeah, well, it's not
yeah,
like they hide the drop from anybody. Like you can see it and you can get splashed by it, well, just by like watching from a distance. So it's like you should know that there's a pretty significant drop on this ride. It's like
yeah,
why would you do this? But yeah, it was just very sad because it's just like, yep, it seems like this would happen in this moment here, like this
yeah.
big crazy moment, just like shut it all down, like stop. Um, yeah, I know that occasionally for like horror nights they would like Welcome to the Jungle and put strobe lights in that room, and I always thought I was like, that's a fun little thing.
It's completely different, but for some reason it fits the ride itself, and it's really weird to hear the song play. But you know what? It, it's great. It's a good
Yeah.
song, and it for some reason it fits the theme of being in the jungle. So
Well, I'm hoping that the Indominus like T-Rex thing is a real thing because that would be really cool if that were the
yeah,
case, like to have them fighting. I don't know if it'd just be like them roaring across a room at each other and they're like, ah, quick, evacuate.
yeah. I,
Uh,
I've heard like conflicting things, that they've replaced most of the animatronics with 8K screens. I've heard they've had now
uh,
screens, but animatronics are still involved because they're making most of the ride enclosed.
okay. Yeah, I
My,
would
my
be, yeah, I don't know how I feel. How do you feel about screens?
hit and miss. You
Yeah.
can it depends on how you use them. Forbidden Journey, really good way of incorporating it into your attraction for transitions. Then you get attractions like Skull Island, which kind of just,
Yeah.
and listen, we can spend 3 hours talking about Fast and Furious Supercharged. We won't.
Yeah.
Just know my opinion. It's a really bad attraction, just in general. But screens can be great for your attraction, or it can be really bad. And the problem with Universal is they've become so dependent on it, it really loses a lot of the appeal to visit the park, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because everything is screen based, just with a different IP on top of it.
Yep, I agree. I remember thinking like the Skull Island stuff was so cool until we got to that like the main part of the ride. And weirdly, I think the main part of that ride is the weakest part. Like everything else is great except the portion where you're basically just sitting in a tram where you're like, yeah,
Yeah,
there's lots of screens and this is
yeah.
really good.
The problem is you had a really good concept, and they didn't change anything from the Hollywood version, except you
Yeah.
add a couple more sets, pieces, and screens, and a very impressive Kong animatronic.
Yes.
But it's, what the problem is. It's like, as somebody who went to that park in the '90s, it's not better than Confrontation. It
Yep.
it just isn't, because it can't be.
Yep.
But you expected something close to it, and we got nothing like that.
Yeah, which is sad because I've heard like people talk about confrontation and stuff. And they're like, it was insane. Like you were gonna
Yeah,
die in this like tram cart thing, and he was gonna. Oh, it's like the old Jaws. Like people talk about that too. Like before it, kind of had its issues too. Water rides always seem to, if they have like big featured animatronics like that, they tend to have some problems. But the old Kong, man, that would, oh man, and the queue line and everything for Kong and that whole area fits so well right next to Jurassic Park. Like that's something I buy where I'm like, okay, I get the transition here. It's not
yeah.
too jarring.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's probably what annoyed me the most about it. You got a really nice queue, a really nice show building, and a really nice area. Everything's leading up to it being a really good ride, and then it's like a 40-person bus with 3D glasses and like four animatronics, and everything else is just basically like the Hollywood version. Like, you spent all this money on this?
yeah,
It's like, it's one thing to take the concept from the Hollywood version on the studio tour and bring it over and flesh it out. They didn't flesh it out, and it's why people don't really like that attraction. Just like Fast and Furious, it's the same exact thing as you would do on the studio tour in Hollywood. You got to differentiate. You got to make it different.
Yep, I
The
completely agree with you.
So it's again, I can get into it. I'm not going to just for time constraints because God knows what I would. God knows what I would talk about. So
Fair enough. That's okay. I just hope Disney looks at these things and is like, okay, we probably won't do that. You know what I mean? Like they're not like we're doing the tram screen thing is all like if you don't know what we're talking about, basically think of like large like a bus or a tram and they bring you into a building like a show building and there's big screens on either side of you and that's where the action quote unquote plays out. Like it kind of moves around and they shake you around a bit, but like you don't really go anywhere. They try to make it feel like you're going places and sometimes that works, but there's nothing tangible in any of it except before and after that sequence. So just picture that for a second, like having none of it. And I think a ride that does that really well is like Spider-Man, where they have primarily screens, but for an older ride, I think they incorporate it well enough and your vehicle moves enough that it's not really like such a letdown. I don't know. How do you feel about Spider-Man?
Spider-Man is the best example of how to use screens and be a simulator-based attraction. The irony is that Spider-Man started something for Universal and was like revolutionary at the time, and they completely milked it and like just it's like kicking a dead horse at this point because then they just constantly made every attraction like Spider-Man just worse.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
at least with Spider-Man, the difference is with the stuff going on in the screen, you're in your own vehicle and it goes along with what's taking place. So Spider-Man jumps on your vehicle, if you feel your vehicle dip. You get hit in one point, your vehicle starts going flying, you know? It feels a little bit more realistic because you're able to match what you're seeing on the screen.
Yeah.
For the attractions we just talked about, you're sitting there and oh, you go back and forth a little bit and there's a little bit of wind and it feels like you're going fast and the reality is you're not going anywhere. You're just sitting somewhere for a couple of minutes and that's it.
Yeah.
So and I've said it, if they want to do screen-based attractions, they got to be more like Spider-Man and Forbidden Journey. They can't be like Skull Island and Fast and Furious because you just lose the immersion of being in the moment for that attraction, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. Totally. Yeah. I completely agree with you. And I wonder if that is a consideration that Disney, like looking at Guardians of the Galaxy, the rumors we're hearing about that roller coaster having a lot of screens and stuff, but also being like on a roller coaster that moves and tries to face the action. Like maybe that's what they're trying to do is say like, hey, we're taking a lot of these concepts that have done really well in other parks and in our parks, but trying to kind of elevate it and evolve it a bit. I don't know how, I'm sure you've been following some of that development as well.
Yeah, I will say this with Disney, and I applaud them for it. They haven't gone the universal way of trying to be like screen-based 3D simulators for most of their attractions.
Yeah.
So I'm glad because then we'd have a lot of parks like that, and just like what makes it stand out, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't. Again, it's how you implement the screen. So if Disney's going to do that, but the roller coaster moves along with the story, and you're not stuck in the same place, okay, that's kind of fine to me. When we could talk about how Guardians shouldn't be at Epcot for
Yeah,
a
sure.
lot of reasons. It doesn't fit into that. But I know they're trying to do something with the Spider-Man ride at Disney's California Adventure that might be screen-based, supposedly a shooter,
Oh,
like a
really?
web slinging shooter, like you're with Spider-Man
Oh,
training,
cool.
something like that.
Okay.
Again, that works because you're moving and there's interactiveness there, and that's fine. But I feel like Disney knows they can't do what Universal does. They shouldn't do what Universal does and rely on innovative technologies or ride systems that they have that make their attraction stand out in the pack. Because
Oh, for sure.
that's what Disney's always been about. You know, you're wearing it right there, Space Mountain.
Yep.
God forbid they're gonna make Space Mountain like, oh hey, guess what? Now it's Thor.
Oh,
You know?
yeah, that would be. I think some of the attractions they have at Disney, I think including the mountains, are ones they would just. I don't know if they would. I'm not going to say they could never touch them. They totally can. It's completely within their rights to do so. However, I think some of the allure of going to these places, again, like Everest, is to be like, this is the only place. Like, and Space Mountain, like, if they change one Space Mountain somewhere, then I think it maybe would set the precedent of being like, oh, they could change all the Space Mountains. But, like, having Space Mountain just be its own thing, I think is something that makes me love it just so much more. Like, and it always will. Like, I just, if they changed it to, like you said, like Thor or whatever else might be popular, I would probably be
Yeah.
crestfallen. I'd be
Yeah,
like,
imagine they decide that, oh, Haunted Mansion is now Doctor Strange, and all the ghosts are just like
oh my God.
their projections of what Doctor Strange is. Yeah, that would go over really well.
Yeah.
I get what Disney's trying to do. We have all these franchises making us billions of dollars in merchandise in the box office. Bring it to the parks. If you have a mix of these new IPs with the classic attractions that you don't touch, where you fix up, I see no flaws in that. But at the same time, like you said, look what they did with Tower of Terror at California Adventure, and everybody immediately after Guardians opened up, they were worried that the Florida version would change over, and we haven't heard anything about that. But
Yeah.
you know, God, what if they decide to make that something Star Wars related because it's right there, or they decide to make that area like specifically towards another IP? I
I
don't think
think,
it'll
yeah.
go over well.
I don't think so either. I think the weird thing is that out of all the IP and stuff that Disney has and all their parks, the only two right now that aren't owned completely by them are back in that corner. Rock and Roller Coaster, they don't like
Yeah,
own Aerosmith, and Tower of Terror with Twilight Zone coming back into the fold. I wonder if like CBS and stuff are going to try to like crank up that price, or if Disney's going to say, "Hey, we're just doing Doctor Strange now." Like it's going to be Doctor
yeah.
Strange Tower. Sorry about that, everybody.
Yeah,
Like,
it's whatever will be the next big franchise that they have. And our Pixar movie will take over that area just because that's what they think. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I don't want to make anybody feel nervous about that
sure,
and start like writing angry letters to Disney saying don't do it. I don't think they're going to. I think they learned their lesson pretty quick after the negative feedback they got for changing that. But again, California Adventure and the shape it was and the way that park has been since it opened, it makes a business decision. It makes sense.
yeah.
But the reality is, you took something that's a classic and kind of reskinned it to something that's making you money now. So that's a universal approach.
Sure. Yeah. And I
Well,
wonder too, I watched a really interesting video today about like the implementation of IPs back in the day into Disneyland and talking about how like, for instance, like Sleeping Beauty Castle came out, like the castle came out 4 years before the actual movie came out. So it's not that Disney's new to like kind of taking these IPs and interweaving them, into because I think they want to have Marvel and Star Wars be part of them forever because they're obviously super lucrative and they just want to like start putting that in now. But the
yeah,
whole retheming, I think, is where it starts to sour with people. It's like, yeah, if you make a new building and you do something else, like we get it to some degree, but like if you take something really beloved, especially if it's something like one of the mountains, like which is like a pure IP that's park based, that's where you're going to start to get, I think, like the serious
yeah.
hatred. Like, it'll be like,
Like I would come out if they ever did anything to Big Thunder Mountain Railroad.
oh my
Even
god, yeah, don't touch
if
it.
don't touch it. It's a great attraction in itself. And like, okay, well, we're gonna like cars, like we're gonna make it our own Radiator
Oh my
Springs. Like,
gosh,
stop.
yeah,
I can't even believe I'm saying those words. But the point is, you're worried about that because of the way Disney's been the last couple of years with their parks, and you
yeah,
don't know if this is the future of what Disney wants to be, where they don't care about their original attractions, so all they care about is attendance numbers.
yeah.
And
That's
and
true.
and you bring it up. Star Wars is a classic franchise. Marvel is a classic franchise, but I can tell you the difference between those two and Disney. Disney didn't create those.
True.
That's not their babies. So when you talk about Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, you talk about Space Mountain, those are concepts that Disney's Imagineers worked on. They built from the ground up through concepts they thought of. It's not like they bought a franchise like Avatar. Not they didn't at the time they didn't buy it, but they own it
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
But,
exactly.
but it's not like something that you knew wasn't really created by the Disney Imagineers. It's something that they worked on that's not their own.
Yeah,
So
yep,
I get the feeling. The problem is, as somebody with Universal, it's like, it's movies. I knew from day one that those rides weren't going to last forever because, just like movies, what's popular then isn't going to be popular now.
yeah. I mean, you look at just even like Twister, for example, and it's like, yep, that's gone. Like, it's
It,
like nobody cares about
it,
Twister anymore. Get it out of
nobody,
here. It's
yeah.
like,
So, but for some reason, Shrek's been able to withstand the test of time. Do
yeah.
people really like Shrek that much?
I don't know. Just like, let's just do the How to Train Your Dragon thing. Do they have How to Train Your Dragon stuff at all in Universal Parks? I'm not familiar if they do or not. 'Cause
Not yet. They just did Kung Fu Panda took over for Shrek at Hollywood.
okay.
And the rumor has been that if they do the new theme park in Florida, I think DreamWorks is going to get its own section, so that's when we will get a
Sure,
How to Train Your Dragon.
sure.
So
That
that would
makes
make
sense.
sense.
There you
Yeah.
go. Dueling Dragons is back, baby. It's a Night Fury instead. Two Night
Yep.
Furies. Man, yeah, you make some interesting points. I just hope, I look at some of even their newer parks for Disney, like Tokyo Disney Sea, and how much of that is just like pure, just their stuff. Like, and I really applaud it, and I get why they're adding all this other stuff now too. But at least they're not forgiving or giving up on the classic stuff too, because like they're making that Beauty and the Beast ride, I think, in Japan, and the
Yes.
Belle animatronic for it
Oh
is
my God.
insane. I only saw like 3 seconds of it, but it's like a real person, like, or
Yeah.
the cartoon real person of Belle walking with a lantern. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God. Like, Disney, please, for all of your rides, let's
Yeah.
do it. Like,
It's amazing because they always are the ones that are they always innovate when it comes to theme park attractions, especially the animatronics. And I've seen that too. And you just go, how are they pulling this off? How are they? And it's not even like, it's like, okay, we're testing it. They show like a couple of loops of it working. Like, if you can make this work every time, you got a winner on your hands. Just like there's the animatronics, I think it's at Tokyo Disney Sea for their Pirates of the Caribbean ride.
oh yeah.
They are some of the best I've seen.
It's like there or Hong Kong or whatever, but the crazy, the
Yeah,
one,
one
yeah,
of
I know
those
the one you're
two
talking
parks.
about.
Yeah,
They are
yeah.
insane. Like the
This
Davy Jones one is like,
exactly, that's the one that I always think of. It's just, and you know what? They've always been the people who always innovate, and it's just amazing to see the work they're putting in, and I always look forward to see whatever they're gonna come up with next.
oh yeah, totally. And like I said, even though like they're doing like a Frozen Land and stuff like that, and they're doing they're bringing Ratatouille and Remy and stuff to Epcot, which for me I wish I've talked about this in the past. I wish every pavilion at Epcot had just one dark ride from like one of the films, because I'd love to have at least one ride at each of those pavilions. They don't all need it, I don't think, but I like kind of doing that because it kind of fleshes out and spreads people around the parks more. But at the same time, it is nice that they are not just being like, yep, we're just doing the tram screen thing, just all screens, because they're using screens, but they're not using them like it doesn't seem like it's too much yet. Like, it's not like
No,
too
and
egregious.
even for that ride itself, the ride system, what they have, it's different enough that, yeah, there's screens, but it's a unique experience that you really can't find in other parks besides going on the same ride again.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, that's acceptable. It's like Universal, you can list off all the attractions that, oh, pick up your 3D glasses, sit in this simulator, here we go.
Yep.
It feels so much the same that you just go, I'm not coming back to this park because the next ride might be the same thing. At least Disney, there's a variety throughout every park where it doesn't feel like you're doing the same attraction twice.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. And it just justifies you waiting in any sort of line, however long it is, because you don't want to be kind of just going in for the next movie, basically, where you're just like, I'm just watching another movie here. Okay. Like, I wanted something different here. Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Yeah, man. But that Navi River Journey, that animatronic at the end, how terrifyingly realistic that thing is. Like, the animatronics are starting to get like really creepy. Like, I mean, like in a good way. Like, you guys
Yeah.
are doing like almost too well. Like, if you ever do the real like a Darth Vader animatronic, which wouldn't be so hard, but like some of these Star Wars ones, I hope they still try to
Well,
do
listen,
that.
you have to wait until the Rise of the Resistance attraction because there's a Kylo Ren animatronic.
Oh, good. I've been kind of
And
like trying, like, I know a little bit about it because I think
yeah,
it's going to have a similar ride vehicle, kind of to like Countdown, kind of, sort of.
it seems like it's going to be a hybrid between that. It's going to be trackless,
And like
but
Spidey, kind of too.
somewhat to that extent. So it's like a mixture of all
Oh,
three. And I've heard that you encounter a Kylo Ren animatronic like 3 or 4 times in the attraction.
sick.
So,
Oh,
so imagine Belle, but it's Kylo Ren, and
that's
imagine how
great.
terrified some people are going to be. So,
That's great. I've got a big poster of him. I just put up. I'm very excited to see that because people are all like, we're like, oh my god, I can't wait to like fly the Millennium Falcon. I'm so sorry. I like the Millennium Falcon's fine. I've never enjoyed the design of that thing because there's like everything to the left of you. There's a lot of ship to the left of you, and
yeah,
piloting that is like
yeah,
a nightmare for me. I'm like, I'll hit everything. I'll be like, what's over there? I'm sorry about that. Like, and I don't know how that ride's gonna work. Like,
yeah.
this other ride makes way more sense to me. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I
Yeah,
get
that
that.
one is just like I can imagine myself yelling at our tourist, "You're messing us up.
Yeah.
We're not gonna be able to make this parcel run now. Come on."
Yeah, exactly. She's like, come
So
on, guys. So low. Yeah, that's great. Okay. Well, we'll probably talk about a little more theme park stuff here at the end because we have a few questions about that. But we
Okay.
need to talk just briefly about the news here, just because we do that. So we had a little games coming up here. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it, called Pokemon Sword and Shield. We just had a direct from Nintendo. Gen 8 of Pokemon's coming out, and I wanted to look these names up because I honestly didn't like remember them, and I'm so sorry because the Gen 8 starters were announced as well. So we have the Score Bunny, or his name is Score Bunny. That's the rabbit Pokemon, which I don't know why they put these things. The chimp Pokemon Grookey, which is the grass type, and then water lizard Sobble or Sobble. I'm guessing it's Sobble because it's like sopping.
I was thinking the same thing because that LE at the end kind of messes everything up.
Exactly. I'm like, I'm not sure about this. Jack, like Pokemon, you said you've been playing, all these consoles throughout the years. Pokemon, where does it rank for you, like nowadays?
It's still a franchise that I'll play if I have the time to.
Sure.
Um, we go back to like, oh, you like the RPG thing? Like as a kid, I couldn't stop playing Pokemon Red. And then like a couple years later, a friend go, that was an RPG, right? I was like, what? It's like, you
You got
kidding me?
tricked
Like,
into
I
it.
don't like RPGs, dude. You've been playing an RPG. No, it's different. No, dude, it's an RPG. You're leveling up Pokemon, fighting people for experience points. It's Pokemon. It's an RPG. It's like, oh man. But I've always liked the franchise. Uh, the last couple of years, I haven't really played it. I didn't play the last generation that came out. I think the last game I bought was X2. I
Okay.
think that was a franchise, right?
I think so.
That was
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. But uh, the first generation Red, Blue, Gold, Silver, Ruby, Sapphire. I played those way too often, so I'm very excited to finally have like a proper game come out for a proper console.
Sure.
And I watched the trailer today, and I looked at the Pokemon, the starters already. I think I'm already going to be part on Team Grookey, if that's how you
Ah,
pronounce it right.
yeah,
Got to
cool.
go with the Grass Monkey.
Yeah, man.
You
Not
got
a
to
bad
go.
pick.
I, Sobly, I don't know anything about it. It probably will have the best evolution just because it looks like it just out of the three, it looks like it's the one that people aren't going to like the most.
Yeah.
And Score Bunny, I've already heard people say it looks like it might be another fire and fighting type.
Yeah, like yeah.
And I know people are not happy with that. Just like because they've already done it like two times, I think already with
Yep.
other fire starters.
Was
So
it Blaziken and Incineroar, which
yeah,
were both that, I think.
yeah,
Uh,
I think those are the two that people bring up. So they're like another one. It's like we don't know yet,
yeah.
but they say, well, look, it has big feet. It's going to kick people. So or it might be, they said possibly fire and electric.
Oh, that'd be
Yeah,
cool.
that'd be different,
Yeah.
and that would be actually a pretty good Pokemon to have in your party. So
I saw someone post about this in our Discord, and I understand kind of the frustration here, but it'd be kind of nice if they even like I know people want the fire, water, grass, type thing. I wonder if like once in a while they've ever considered just switching it to being like, all right, we're doing like rock, ice, and thunder, or whatever it would be, to finally balance that out for the starters. Because I feel like one of my issues here is that I love Pokemon. It's been a franchise I've followed for a long time since I was a kid. It was like what I got like anime and gaming like started because of that. But it to me, I'm just like, yep, this is kind of what I expect. And I just played Let's Go Pikachu, so I'm like craving it.
yeah,
It seems similar in a lot of ways, which there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just interested to see like where it goes and if it tries anything really new because I'm not really seeing the hook, but it is on a console finally, which is the Switch, which is this amazing hybrid thing. But I'm still waiting to see like if they're gonna come out with anything kind of like
yeah.
weird.
It seems like from the trailer and from what I read, they're going back to the original concept that they had, where there's gyms and it's not like it was
Okay.
Aloha. What was it? Sun and Moon,
Oh yeah,
right?
Lola. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it was like you only had to fight certain people in order to get badges. Now it's like it looks like you have to go back to the original concept, which is maybe eight. Again, this is just based off what 2.5 minute trailer.
Sure, yeah.
I agree with you. It's nice. It looks great. It's late 2019, so there's still plenty of time for
Yep.
them to reveal information. And I assume they're going to do stuff differently because they want people to buy this game. People will buy it like myself. I'm going to buy it because it's Pokemon.
Yeah. I
But
think they're counting on that, right?
yeah, yeah, that's what they're probably going with. And then they'll probably include stuff like online battles. and people go, sold.
Yeah.
Finally. I don't need a link cable anymore. I don't
Yeah.
need to be close by the people to use Wi-Fi. We can just do it like that. But I want to ask you, with this game coming out, do you think the 3DS is dead? Because there's no announcement this game's coming to the 3DS. This is exclusively, I think, for the Switch, and they haven't announced anything yet for the 3DS. I always felt like Nintendo gaming was Pokemon.
Yeah.
Is the 3DS going to be done by the end of the year?
I think that like we're still gonna get some things here and there, but I think ever since the Switch got announced, it's kind of been like, hey, 3DS, your days are numbered. Like, because
Yeah,
the Switch is such a weird thing, and Game Freak said a long time ago that they will always put Pokemon on a handheld system because that's how they do things. So Nintendo, I think, saw that and was like, okay, what if we just make our console portable? And they're like, okay, that seems like it works for us. So I think, more or less, this might be one of the last big things that kind of says, "Hey, 3DS, we're
yeah,
not really doing much with you anymore." So I hear you. Yeah, that's what I guess
yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
Because I was thinking about like the trailer doesn't show anything for the 3DS, and like
No, nope,
Nintendo and Game Boy handhelds are like peanut butter and jelly. They've always gone together.
yep,
And if they're not going to release it, like, is this it? I mean, they haven't. There hasn't been any news about it, and it's just like, if they don't announce Pokemon, this could be it. And
yeah.
we
I
don't know
wonder.
anything right now, but I feel like, ugh, that could
Yeah,
that it would be a sad day to finally see like handheld gaming relate from like Game Boys and everything else, and like just your mobile phone. So
yeah, that would be sad. I wonder too if like they look at it and they're just like the Switch is just like the new market for us in Japan because it basically is just taking the place of the 3DS. So I wonder if they would ever even consider porting it to 3DS or if this is just like saying, "Hey, Nintendo, we're taking a stance. Like if
yeah,
you want this game, you got to get the Switch.
yeah.
Sorry,
And
guys."
you know what? Honestly, it's like they've also announced games that were for the 3DS coming to the Switch.
Yeah.
So I feel like you're seeing this transition, even with the publishers, to going, we can make more money by putting the game on the Switch because everybody has it now.
Yep.
So I,
Yep.
I hate to say that, but it's like I feel unless we get something later this, like during the summer during E3, they announce games. I mean, I feel like that's it. So
Yep, I think I completely agree with you unless they introduce a brand new one, but I don't think they would do that because they don't want to hurt this amazing goodwill that they've kind of cobbled together from the death of the Wii U and the Switch kind of coming out of nowhere and kind of just really like capturing all the spirit of Nintendo on one platform. And I think they're just going to push that. They're going to push that forward instead of doing anything 3DS or handheld related. I'm sure they're just going to keep going with like iterations of the Switch, bigger ones, smaller ones, more powerful ones, stuff like that. So this is just like the new 3DS for better
yeah,
or for worse. But yeah, and we always like to do this here. We like to do like a score of like on a hypometer from like 0 to 100, 0 being couldn't care less, and 100 being I'm so crazy, insanely excited for this. Where, Jack, do you fall on the hypometer for Pokemon Sword and Shield?
I'm gonna say on a scale of 0 to 160 right now
Okay.
because I like Pokemon a lot, but there's not outside of what we were shown today and told. We don't have a lot of information.
Yeah.
So probably that number is going to change probably when they do their E3 Nintendo Direct sometime in June.
Yep, and they'll do the Treehouse thing afterwards,
Pretty
Treehouse Live,
much,
and
yeah.
just sit there and talk about all that stuff. That's very good. Good
Yeah.
point. Yeah. And again, like I said, I just came off Let's Go Pikachu and stuff, so I'm more of like a 30 out of 100. It's not supposed to say like I'm throwing shade at this at all. It's just like I'm like, oh, one thing I really liked about Let's Go was seeing the actual Pokemon like walking about, and I think they're kind of going back to random encounters because they're kind of crouching through the grass. That could
Yeah.
change, but that was one thing I thought was cool. It made the world feel a little more alive. And I kind of wish that were there. But again, it's not necessarily for me. It's for everyone who's got a Switch now and is excited about a new generation of
Pretty much.
Pokemon.
So
So,
I'll ask you, is it sword or shield for you?
oh yeah, that was a good question. Okay, so like I tried to look it up because people were like they're taking like a stance right now on name alone, Sword or Shield. I guess for me it would be Sword. I don't know. I just
Yeah.
like that's
I
kind of
feel yeah, I felt the same way. It's like, why would I want a shield? I can have a sword. It's like, yeah,
exactly.
but you could have the shield to block the sword. Yeah, but I have a sword.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think if again this could change. It was like pick one. I'll go with the sword.
Yep.
So
It's the same thing like in the beginning of most Kingdom Hearts games, Jack. They kind of have you pick between like sword, shield, and magic, and I always pick like sword and magic. I'm like, I'm gonna go like full crazy, like
Yeah,
damage high possible. Like I don't want this to be like at least I could take a lot of hits. I'm like, no, like I'm
yeah.
gonna be fighting. Like, come on.
Mhm.
I'm not a punching bag. I'm not saying that if you like shield, you're a punching bag. I'm just saying we don't know what Pokemon are gonna fall in either, because like blue or red in the past, they'll definitely have like 8 that are only in sword and 8 that are only in shield, and I'm
Yeah,
sure that's a consideration. It's weird naming though, so I'm kind of
yeah,
interested to see how that plays into it. It's
yeah.
like,
Pretty much. I wasn't expecting that to be the name of the games. I expected it to be something completely out of left field that we
yep,
might not. The Sword and Shield. That's like the first time they've been like based on weapons. So
yeah,
usually it's something else, like you said, colors or elements or something else along the line. So I
like
give them kudos. It's unique, but I feel like you'll have more people buying the sword just because it sounds cooler than the shield.
yeah, it's just like why didn't they do like Pokemon Vapor and Gravel or something? Like that's what I expect from them after doing like X and Y, like or Black and White. It was like
Yeah.
okay, like I don't
It's,
even know.
it's Pokemon Pepsi or Pokemon Coke.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, so well put. Oh my gosh, that's very good. And the other thing in news I just want to briefly mention today is the Book of Enchantments, which is coming to the Disney Play or Disney Plus. I keep wanting to call it Disney Play, but Disney Plus or Disflix, that's what I call it around here. Um, that is coming in kind of the wake of Once Upon a Time. Now, a lot of people who maybe didn't watch that show, Once Upon a Time was this kind of fairy tale-esque story that was kind of like lost, where it was all kind of mixed and garbled together, and it was kind of bleeding into the real world and reality, but also there was like this past fantasy land. And it sounds like this one is going to be a little more straightforward, just kind of going over like fairy tales. The thing that's interesting is we're talking about the origins of some villains, Maleficent and Ursula being two of the ones named here. Now, as Jack and I, we discussed this before the show even started, really, but like Maleficent kind of had her origin story, but I wonder if they're just kind of like, we're going to do multiple Maleficents. Like, would you want to see a Maleficent origin story again, Jack?
I don't know because it's a weird concept. I get what they're trying to do. We talked about it, and
Yeah,
you said it best. You want to have people subscribe to your service, so you want to give them everything you can. So it's an interesting concept, but how much of a story can you tell that's not going to feel dragged out? Like, how many episodes is it going to take to like fill the origin story? You
yeah,
know, and I feel like, yeah, there's a story there, but what are you gonna do? 6 episodes? You can't, like how interesting is the character gonna be? You're gonna create new characters? Are you gonna create new lore?
yeah,
It
that's
like
true.
for some people, they're gonna like that. For myself, it's like we had the movie. I kind of know what happens. So unless you're gonna do something different, I don't know how interested I will be in that. So
Yeah, and from the title alone, Book of Enchantments, I kind of get this feeling that like every episode might be completely different. So they might just do one episode on Maleficent per se, and maybe it will all kind of come together in like a finale where they all kind of meet up or something happens. I don't know, because that's very like in my mind very Disney like Avengers-esque, where you're like, all right, take all these things and you put it together, and people freak out about it.
listen,
Uh,
you just spoiled the next major Marvel arc. It's going to be Disney villains versus the Avengers.
Oh my god, dude. Like, I know it's a joke, but at the same time, I would be there. I would be there, man. Day
Listen, that's
one, I'd
what
be like,
happened. Somebody's going to get all the Infinity Stones in the next movie, and all of a sudden, boom, they're all going to show up and go, "What?" And
oh my
it's going to
gosh.
go pitch black, and then Disney villains will return in Book of Enchantments.
Oh my gosh. I would love that. I'm still waiting for them to do, and I've talked about this a lot, but I want them to do an Avengers style team up of uh Elsa and Anna, Rapunzel and Moana somehow, and have them group together to make like a female-led Disney animation Avengers where they all have like kind of some superpowers. I was like, that's easy money.
That's not, yeah, that is easy money. That's
Easy
something that
money.
should be on their streaming service.
Oh my god, dude.
That's something that you go, sign me up. You got all these characters that people really like, and now all of a sudden you have them all teaming up for like comedy bits. Okay, fine, because that's what it would be like. So
Yeah, dude, if Wreck-It Ralph 2 proved anything, it's that all the princesses together is a recipe for success, because that was kind of the only thing in that movie I found that was really enjoyable. I was like, I like this whole bit. Um, The one that is interesting to me though is Ursula, because in The Little Mermaid you get this kind of animosity between King Triton and Ursula, where they're just trying to kill each other, and it would be kind of nice to know that story because we don't. You get thrown in, and it's just like they've always hated each other, and it's like, yeah, but she's ostracized from the kingdom. Why does she hate him so much? Like, it's just because he's the king and he's got all the power, but she has magic as well. Like, I guess I'd be interested to see kind of like why she hates him so much. Like
Yeah,
that to me is
that's something that I go, that's worth of its own episode or a
yeah.
couple of episodes. That makes complete sense. Same thing, kind of like it's not the same realm, but like if you did something like that for Scar in The Lion King,
Dude, yes.
there's something there. You get a little bit of backstory, but if you were to see the rise and everything that happened, you go, sign me up because I want to know that. And again, that we might know that in the Lion King movie. We have no clue yet, but
Yeah.
you bring up a very good point where there's a lot of villains in the Disney universe, whatever universe that is, that we don't know much about their story. And if we find out, it's little pieces that never really get dug into. That's what a series like their work that we're pitching to them that we should be getting paid for,
Yes, thank
they
you.
should really look into, because that's something that would draw people in. You know these characters and you love them, and you know the villains and you hate them, but you'll find out why you hate them and why they are the way they are.
Yeah.
So I again, Ursula makes a complete. I wasn't thinking about it until you mentioned that. Makes complete sense, and I actually would like that. So if they did characters that people really never knew their backstory on, that makes sense to flesh it out for them.
Oh, for sure. And I wonder if the fear there is making them sympathetic because, like, you kind of have like a Snape and James Potter's type of situation with like Scar, maybe where it's like Mufasa was always like better than him and showing off, and Scar was always just kind of like the lesser of the two. And people are like,
Yeah,
oh, like Scar, we get why you killed him now, like that. Maybe that's the fear. Or like, think about Captain Hook. Do you do the origin story where like a young boy who flies around chops off his hand and feeds it to a crocodile? Like then you're starting to think like, yeah, Peter Pan's the bad guy. Like you're like,
yeah,
I get why he's chasing you around Neverland, man. He's
yeah,
like, you took my friggin'
yeah.
hand. Like,
That's the problem. Do you make these bad guys like cool, and
yeah,
people are like, yeah, I'm with Hook. Peter Pan was always a jerk.
exactly.
That, that
It's
big
like,
of so that is true. That could be the other side of that pitch, where it's like, yeah, but if we do that, then all of our classic, heroes look like real jerks at the end of the day.
oh, for sure.
So
Yeah. It's like you look at somebody like maybe Yzma from Emperor's New Groove, where that one could maybe be simpler, where it's like she just wanted to like a quest for power, and she just
yeah,
didn't know how to obtain
yeah,
it. So she's just like, I'm gonna just try to kill this guy.
yeah,
But at the same time, some of the other ones where it's like, like what do? You do like Hades over the thousands of years, just kind of hating Zeus because you're like, man, that guy sucks. Like,
yeah,
that's why.
yeah.
Like, it
See,
can be
that's
cool.
the thing. It can be cool, but again, you mentioned those characters, and like, yeah, we can flesh out a story, but if we flesh it out to a point that we feel bad for them, then it doesn't really work. Because then
Yep.
when people go back and watch the movies, they know what's happening, and you
Yeah.
go, well, now
Exactly.
I don't feel bad for Hercules and Zeus. I feel bad for Hades, and you're like,
Yeah.
never imagine a million years that anybody would be saying that. We're
Exactly.
like Cruella de Vil has all of a sudden she's sympathetic, and like, you know what, those Dalmatians deserved it. And you're like, okay, that makes no sense, but I agree that I like the idea of an origin story if it fits to why they are and doesn't make them feel like, okay, we have a reason to feel bad for you. It's like, no, we now have more of a reason to dislike you.
Yep, and that's why I'm so worried about that Emma Stone, Cruella de Vil like origin story. 'Cause I'm like, what origin story is there? And she's just like, I've always liked fur, and I thought maybe
Yeah.
let's upgrade to
I
killing dogs.
I always
Like,
thought like wasn't I always thought like, oh, isn't like The Devil Wears Prada like a prequel?
oh my
Like
god, dude,
for some reason I always
yeah,
thought that as a kid. I was like, she's kind of like the same character in some extent. Like she's very mean and fashion and everything. So
that's so, dude, that is
I
excellent. That is
that's
so good.
just
Thank you.
right. That's like those are like the thoughts I've had as a kid. I'm like, this isn't a prequel. Seems like it. So
Yeah, it's good thoughts. It's good thoughts.
yeah,
Okay, hypometer though, Books of Enchantment, or Book of Enchantments. Apologies on Disney Plus. 0 to 100. Where are you feeling?
I'm gonna give it a 10 because we talked about before. I haven't heard it
Okay,
actually being announced. If they announce more of the characters that we probably both grew up with watching on the animated movies they made, maybe I'll be interested.
sure.
I'm probably still going to be subscribing to Disney Plus because of the Marvel stories that are supposedly going to be there.
Yep.
But if they bring other stuff in like the Book of Enchantments, I'll definitely give it a watch. But it's not like day one I'm subscribing for that. I'm subscribing obviously for Loki, Falcon, and the Winter Soldier, Scarlet Witch, those characters,
Yeah,
and whatever else they're going to be bringing to the network. Not these Disney villains that I probably haven't thought about in the last 10 to 15 years
for
from
sure.
watching the movies. So
Okay, fair enough. I guess for me, I'll put it like a 60 just because I really enjoyed Once Upon a Time and I kind of like the whole. I feel like Disney's kind of gotten away from some of their like fairy tale enchantment stuff, and that's maybe why I love the Disney Animation Studio stuff typically more than Pixar, just because I like those old school stories in the
yeah,
fantasy realm and medieval style. So we'll see what this is, but again, it could be a lot of different things, and I don't know exactly how they're going to tackle it. But either way, my curiosity's peaked.
yeah,
We'll say it's peaked. Hopefully that Ursula origin story is something good. But maybe
yep.
it's going to be horrible, and I'll be like, I'm sorry, Ursula. I get why you wanted to kill this guy. And I'll be like, oh, geez. Yeah. All right. Well, it's time to kind of start winding down a little bit here. We're going to move into that segment of the show that we like to call Time Killers. Yes, the things we've been killing time with, the games we've been playing, the movies we've been watching, the TV shows we've been viewing. Jack, what have you been killing time with recently, man? What have you been playing or watching?
I can't stop playing the Resident Evil 2 remake.
Oh,
I
dude,
know
nice.
I know I think everybody that's been coming on your show has been talking about playing it and everything, but I'm such a big fan of the franchise itself, and I've been waiting for this game since they announced it like 3, 4, 5 years ago,
Cool.
and it's finally here, and I've already I've already completed everybody's story in every way possible. I still have been throwing it in playing it because it's just such a good game, and Resident Evil 2 is probably one of my favorite games that I've played for forever, pretty
Cool.
much. But
That's good.
yeah, basically it's been that, and recently I started playing again, Condemned: Criminal Origins, which
Oh,
is a game by Sega. It came out for the Xbox 360, I think, like 15 years ago now.
okay.
And it's like you play as a criminal detective. He's framed for murder. You have to kind of prove your name, and it's all melee combat. And like for the time when it came out, it was like innovative because you could pick off stuff from the walls and everything.
Oh, cool.
And it had like crime scenes that you can do investigations on. So I'm like more of a survival horror guy. So after I finished Resident Evil 2, I threw that back in just for fun.
Cool, dude. Nothing wrong with that. Well, I'm so happy that people are digging Resident Evil, but also it kind of is making you go back to your past a little bit
Yeah.
more and be like, oh, I'm gonna check this old game out. Why not? Like that's cool, man.
Yep.
Nice. You been watching anything lately?
Not really. Honest, like the last thing I was watching when it was like on live was Better Call Saul.
Okay, gotcha.
Um,
Nice.
it's not that I like. There's not really much like television wise that like I get invested in anymore. Like I've tried Game of Thrones, and halfway through I got bored.
Okay, fair enough.
Westworld was the same way after season one, which
Westworld, yeah.
it's like I really wanted to like Westworld, and like season one was great, and then I got like a couple episodes into season two, and I stopped. I
Yeah.
don't know, something about it. But I think the last thing I actually watched, like I binged, was Barry.
Oh yeah. I've heard that's good.
Yeah, after Bill Hader, I think won the award. I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. I liked him on Saturday Night Live. It's actually pretty good. It's darker than I expected it to be, but the comedy is actually pretty funny. It's well written. I think
Oh,
it's the
cool.
same guys who did Silicon Valley.
Oh, okay, cool.
So
Okay, gotcha.
yeah,
Sweet,
but
dude. Well, sounds like
mhm.
you've got some stuff going on there. Are you excited about like the Breaking Bad like sequel movie starring like Jesse Pinkman?
I I'm optimistic because people didn't think Better Call Saul would be a good series because how do you flesh
Yeah,
out that character? And yeah, the pacing is a little bit slower, and Saul isn't as interesting as Walt and Jesse, but
yeah,
it's still pretty good. So I have, I believe in Vince. I think Vince is
yeah,
going to do a great job with the movie, and Aaron Paul's been he's one of my favorite actors, so I really think he'll nail it. I'm just concerned about what are you going to do?
yeah,
Is it after everything that takes place in Breaking Bad? Is this a prequel? What is it going to be to make you like? How do you flesh out the story? If you do it after Breaking Bad, it makes sense. But
yeah.
is there really a lot there to go on?
I don't know.
It's really weird because He's left in an interesting spot because I don't want to spoil it, even though it's been over for a while. There's still story for him, but isn't enough to actually make an interesting movie. I
Yeah,
think, but I think Vince being part of it, the guy who's created Breaking Bad, he'll find something and he'll make me go, "Bravo, Vince!"
yeah.
Like he's done with most of the stuff he's done for Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool, man. Well, I love that optimism. I think it's supposed to be a sequel, but I don't want to say that for sure because I don't want to be like, oh yeah, no, and then people are like, no, it's actually like a prequel or something else.
Yeah.
But I always feel like a sequel has
Yeah.
more stakes, right? Like
Yeah.
prequel,
I,
I'd be like, oh,
I feel like that's how they would have to go
yeah,
because if it's a prequel, he can just show up in Better Call Saul. That's it. That's how you do it. You don't
yep,
have. He doesn't need his own spin-off. So I feel like with everything that played out in that series, it would make more sense to be the aftermath for him and just see how his life plays out afterwards.
yeah. That'd be cool. I think regardless, and this is not supposed to spoil it for anybody, but I will see if we're gonna have Bryan Cranston return. That's the reason I watched that show, and I think one of the things that it's really difficult is that like he's the protagonist in a sense, but you do watch him become like super evil. But
Yeah.
like part of you, like and part of me was always just like, you know what, Walt, you do it. You just go full crazy, man. Like I'm with you to the end, whatever happens, man. I can't wait to see it. And then I was like, oh, okay, that was fun. Like after that show, it's just like that was that's a lot. It's
I
a
don't.
lot.
Yeah, I don't think people appreciate how good of a actor Bryan Cranston is. I know
Oh yeah,
Breaking Bad did that, but like Malcolm in the Middle,
dude.
he's
Yes,
he's really good in that. But people don't pay attention to that because it's a comedy. But he played his role very well in that
yes.
in that
Oh,
show. So
gosh,
I
yeah.
think in most of the stuff I've seen him in, he's been pretty good,
Yep.
and I don't think he gets enough credit. So
One of
you
my
know,
favorite episodes in Malcolm is there's one where he's watching the boys all by himself and he's going crazy and the boys can't really read him because they want to like get out for the night or to do something fun, but they don't know he's doing all these crazy things to throw them off. And there's a bunch of like little Hals around him in the kitchen, and then they shoot to the boys. The boys are all sitting on the couch, just in the like in the living room, like scared, and there's no noise. And Hal runs in there, and he just starts screaming, "Shut up!" And the kids are like,
yeah,
"What's happening?" Like that, like he nails it.
yeah.
He's so good.
There,
He's so good.
there's the one thing that I constantly show people is like he comes home from work and he's told to get milk. So he goes into the drawer. The drawer is squeaky. He goes into his cabinet to get WD-40. He doesn't have WD-40. He goes to his car, and the car, there's something wrong with the car. He's turning it. And then, I'm forgetting her name. The wife.
Lois.
Yeah, Lois comes in and goes, Hal, did you get the milk? And he's working now and he's taking apart the car. What do you think I'm doing? So it's funny because it's like I've done that. I've had to go out to get milk, or I've had to go out to the store and then like, oh, this happened. I got to deal with this first, and then something else happened. So I like his character's so relatable in that show, and it's just like and he's just like he's just such a great actor. And it's not that he's not in more stuff. I'm surprised he's not in more bigger name stuff. I think like the last big movie was Godzilla, and even
Yes.
in Godzilla, 20 minutes.
Yeah,
That's
that
it.
was criminal. I felt
Yeah,
kind of cheated. I was like,
yeah.
and I know that there was a lot of rumors circulating him about being Lex Luthor. And then I remember reading something where he had said like, "Yeah, I'll be in your comic book movies, but you have to like write a comic book character for me." And I was like, "No, don't be like all
No,
self-indulgent." I was like,
honestly, if we can't have J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson again,
"Yeah,
he could be J. Jonah Jameson. He
oh
got
my
the voice
gosh,
like
yeah,
like Parker.
dude, that's a good point. That would
Yeah,
be really interesting. Oh
like
my
like
gosh,
the way he says, Jesse, we need to cook. You can tell Peter, I need pictures of Spider-Man,
dude."
and that would work. That would work.
I
But
love that. That's great,
yeah,
dude. Yeah, I think he just needs to be in more stuff.
yeah, he
He's
definitely
incredibly
does.
talented. Incredibly talented. Let's see. I guess we'll wrap up Timekillers here for me. I've just been playing Anthem. I enjoy it. It's not perfect. I understand some of the qualms. I'm working on a review for it, so everybody, don't worry, it's coming. But I hope some people are enjoying it. Like it's you really got to have friends to play with. It's one of those games that's really dependent on
Mhm.
that. But I'm liking it. So it's not the greatest game, but it's definitely not the absolute worst. It's
Yeah,
not. You
it's
know,
probably better with friends.
yes, so
Yeah, pretty
yeah,
much.
for sure.
Yeah,
Like Monster Hunter. Like I love Monster
yeah,
Hunter, but that game is like infinitely better with pals. Like
yeah.
that's just how most games. That's how I like to game anyway. Typically, I like my single player stuff. Don't get me wrong. And maybe God of War would be annoying if like my buddy Joe is playing Atreus, and I'd be like, Joe, get over here, shoot your arrows, boy. Like it would
Yeah.
be kind of weird. Besides that, I am just rewatching My Hero Academia. I don't know if you're an anime guy at all, Jack, but I love that show, and I will keep watching it until it's done, and I'll probably watch it a third time eventually, because I've got a problem. Got a problem, Jack. Send help.
Listen, there's nothing wrong with that. There could be worse problems you have.
That's true. That's true.
Honestly, I've never not really gotten that big into anime except like the Saturday morning cartoons. So
Sure.
the one I've rewatched constantly is Yu-Gi-Oh!
Dude.
And unfortunately, the American version, the 4Kids version, is garbage compared to the original version.
Okay.
But I was big into that in like grade school and high school, watching that, playing the game, with the cards. I still have my cards somewhere in my house, but it's like that's the one thing, and I know it's on Netflix, so I'll constantly, if I have nothing else to do, I'll just turn it on, leave it in the background. The irony is that it takes like 6 episodes for them to finish one duel because it's just how it always was. So.
Yep. I just recently went back and like actually finished the show because I never did as a kid. That show ends so abruptly. It's just like we're done. And it's like, what? And Yuki's like, we're gonna go on so many more great adventures. I'm like, are you? Like, apparently not. Like,
nope. Then they go to the school, and then they go to Duel Monsters on Motorcycles.
Yep, that's where I was like, yep, nope.
And then they all got their own like crossover movie, and then they just recently released another movie. It's really weird because it's been the series has been done for a long time, but yet they still keep releasing spin-offs and movies, and like people really like it's kind of like dead. But I watched the movie, I saw it, I was like, it's terrible though.
Yeah, I watched the one where it's like the 3 of them, and I liked Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, so there's like 2/3 of that group that I was like, okay, cool, I get this, and I like these guys, but everybody else I was like, man, I don't really care about this. But yeah, it was like fine. I think I fell asleep halfway through it, and usually with Netflix or anything I watch like that, if I fall asleep and I don't like immediately rewind it to go back, I'm like, well, clearly I didn't really care enough. I was just like, I can catch up. It's fine. They're fighting super dragons or whatever. Yeah, man, Yu-Gi-Oh! Though, there's some fun stuff back there in the back of the day. Well, now we get to move into my personal favorite segment of the show, the last segment, community feedback and questions. And I had to ask people, because you were going to be on, Jack, about what their favorite theme park rides were, because like I had to. I'm sorry, I had to do it.
That's a burden that I'll have to live with when I do these things, that people want to ask me theme park questions or anything about that. That's fine.
Okay. Well, good. So our buddy Ryan Lehman, he writes in, he said that he would have to say either the Power Tower or Wild Thing from Valley Fair. If people aren't familiar with Valley Fair, it is a theme park here in Minnesota. Power Tower is like a drop tower thing, and Wild Thing is just big roller coaster.
Yeah.
So.
Listen, there's nothing wrong with those. Anything for thrills.
Exactly.
And then like the closest thing to Power Tower would be that I've gone on is Doctor Doom's Fearfall.
Yep,
probably
exactly.
To that extent. So those rides are fine. It's just you gotta build up the courage to go on it the first time, because you see what's gonna happen. So you gotta be ready for whatever happens. So
I get they did this back in the 90s, and obviously the theming fits in with what it was supposed to be, like the comic book stuff and Islands of Adventure. But I just like think of, if they had to make a Doctor Doom ride, Universal or Disney today, how crazy insane like the queue would be for that line. Oh my God.
Listen, there's a lot of things that I wish Universal and Disney could do with that Marvel attraction, but because of the contract, about limited by it. So
yeah, it kills me. Buddy Peyton, he just sent me a gif of Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, and then I asked him, I was like, okay, you got to let me know why. And the funny thing is, I actually went to Disneyland with him and his wife last year, and I will never forget them laughing behind me, and I felt like I had to laugh to keep up with their laughter because they were having just such a good time. He said, it's just the wildest ride in the wilderness. What's not to love? Exactly. Great, right?
It's true. I still think it's their best original attraction. That was the first ride I've gone on when I was a kid at a Disney park. So that's why I held a lot of sentiment to me.
Oh, for sure, dude. Nothing wrong with that.
I know over the years they've done some of the improvements. I know they did the changes now. So when you go up, they got all the lighting, the sparks, the smoke, and everything.
Oh yeah, the one in Disneyland is so good.
It's really done well. In general, it's just a very good roller coaster.
Yeah, I have a V-neck that says it says like Mountain Man, and it's got the 3 mountains.
Nice.
And I love it. I'm not a V-neck kind of guy, but it's like a mud green, and I don't have Thunder Mountain shirts, so I'm like, and I do love the mountain range. Is just like my freaking favorite. Nice. I used to be terrified as a kid. Get sick on all of them. Not sick so much on Splash, it's just straight terror on Splash. Anyway, Corey Lang or Lang underscore Corey on Twitter, he writes in. Thanks, Corey, for writing in. He says Haunted Mansion for starters. I know it's mostly a walking simulator, kind of being hoarded from room to room, but I love the theatrics of it. And it's one of those only, or like, how did they do that rides out there? And then he also said Rock and Roller Coaster because it's super fun. Rock on, Rock and Roller Coaster.
Yeah.
What a scream, what a dream. I think if Disney could in Florida, they would do what they're doing to Rock and Roller Coaster over in Paris and just change it in Iron Man, like in a heartbeat. They'd
Oh
be like,
yeah, even the concept of the ride itself is actually okay. I don't hate that theming and the story behind it,
yeah,
but I know they could do they want to do more with it. But again, it's limitations, and if you can't change it to Iron Man, what are you going to change it to? Yeah, there's not really much out there that Disney has that you can say, okay, we
yep,
could change it to this to make it work. So for now, they can leave it the way it is.
yep, exactly. And Corey, to touch on your part about Haunted Mansion, I remember I just watched something recently talking about where Waltz they changed the idea of the Haunted Mansion being from like, oh, you would personally walk from room to room to being like a ride just to get people to move through there. I think that's one of the smartest things they ever did with all their rides. It's the same reason I guess they don't have mirrors over the sinks because they don't want people like standing and just waiting there and like kind of fixing their hair and stuff. So it's a lot of these little things you think about, but that's still a showcase Haunted Mansion of kind of a little like parlor tricks. And I
Yeah.
think that's we talked about it. No screens for the most
No,
part.
yeah, it's an innovative attraction that unless you really pay attention to what's going on around you, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Unless you start knowing the how one thing happens or how this happens or how the ballroom scene happens and all
Yep.
that stuff, it's it's very well done.
Yeah, very immersive. Jay, also Aldera A, I believe. Is that Aldera? How do you say it on Twitter? Either way, as a lifelong space nerd, she says Space Mountain, the version from Walt Disney World, rock on Jay, will always have my heart. A dark coaster with stars flying around you feels pretty close to magic. Couldn't agree more with you. I love it. Do you have a preference, Jack, on either West Coast or East Coast Space Mountain?
I've gone on the East Coast version. I haven't been to Disneyland, so I don't. But I've seen videos.
Okay.
I think the Space Mountain version on the East Coast is better because they learned from the original version and they did everything there. But I mean, like, is Space Mountain one of your favorite attractions?
Yeah,
It is one of your.
it
Like,
is
I
maybe
really,
my
I,
favorite.
I really like it, but I always feel like I'm a little bit maybe because I'm like I'm 6'2", so I like always feel like I'm crammed in the guy
Dude, yeah, for
inside the
sure.
ride itself. So it's like I love it, but I'm like I always feel like man, I'm about to like bust my knees because
Yep, I
I'm
hear
like
you.
stuck like that. So,
Yep,
but
I'm 6 foot, so I hear you. I'm
oh,
like,
you know how it is. Yeah.
I crumple in there, but I still love those seats. I love those little mono
Yeah.
seats. You sit by yourself,
Yeah,
like,
it's just it's a weird feeling because these days, like, okay, party of four, go there, number three, and then you go on the ride. No, like Space Mountain's like get in, you feel tight and comfortable, good, enjoy the ride.
yeah, exactly. Don't put your hands up. Yeah, I've fallen in love with Space Mountain over the years. I think a lot of it's just I love the show building. I love just the whole like the walk up there. I think the whole thing just being so entrenched, and it's one thing I love with some of these rides is that you can't see any of it from the outside, and I think that's what elevates it because mostly the one on the East Coast is just a Mad Mouse. For the most part, it's not. There's nothing like super insane about that, but like putting it all in the dark with like the stars and some of the music, they don't have it piped into the actual ride vehicle, but there's something so cool about that, and I absolutely adore it. I'm just like, yep, Space Mountain. I love you. Even though the theme, like, I don't know what the story is. I don't even care. I'm like, I'm just
Yeah.
immersed in this world. Like, let's go to space. Like, here we go. I will say this though, the Star Wars overlay with the screens that they use pretty well over in Disneyland. That was pretty cool. Like hearing this John Williams music as you're kind of
Yeah,
going around,
yeah.
just like,
If they do it for special occasions, that's fine. But like, oh no, leave it Hyperspace Mountain. Like, please don't do that.
yeah,
Don't give them any ideas already. We've already talked about it. Don't give them the
exactly.
idea to change it over to that. Well,
um, this one comes in from Seblot90. He says, I have to say Helix or Liseberg's Banen, which is Liseberg. That's over in Sweden. I tried to look this up today. He said both roller coasters in Liseberg, Sweden. So he says, I love roller coasters, and I grew up with the classic Liseberg's Banen. However, Helix has really grabbed my heart with its speed, loops, and the queuing mini game is a lot of fun. So for people who don't know what that is, the first one, Lisa Bergbana, it's like this. It's a steel coaster where there's like a little train on the front of it, and it's pretty quick. But all this stuff is kind of built in the side of a hill or mountain, so you do kind of come down the hill and mountain pretty quickly, which is nice. But Helix is insane. There's like 7 inversions. There's a ton of stuff going on with that. It's one of their like higher end crazy thrill rides, and I was like, this is pretty cool. Like they got some pretty cool stuff over in Europe.
They
Yeah,
they
for sure.
definitely do, but the way you just described it, I started to get nervous because I never think I can do an attraction like that with all those inversions and whatnot.
Yep.
Just even like I've done Hulk once, I've done Dueling Dragons once. It's like once is enough. Once is enough. I got to
Yep.
experience it. I can cross it off my list and I'm done.
I thought Hulk was too long. We did Hulk when I was there a few months ago, and I don't think anyone will ever be truly prepared for that launch because like Rockin' is pretty intense, and I was like, oh, it'll be like Rockin', but like the angled launch and the speed, and I just remember like feeling my heart was about to stop.
Yeah,
I was just like, oh my
it's
gosh.
it's like you could be prepared for it. You could try to brace yourself, but it's not just the launch. It's that loop. It's the
Yep.
twist. It's the cobra
Yep.
roll. It's everything within the first
Yep.
30 seconds of that attraction where you won't be ready for. You could be ready for one thing. You ain't gonna be ready for the next 3 that hit you.
Yep. And then like near the end, I'm like, oh, this is like there's like a little bit of a breaking run. I'm like, they must be done. And then I was like, nope, you still have like
Nope.
another inversion or two.
Nope.
And I'm like, why are we still going? Like, please stop. Like please let me out. Lastly, Kinghorn85, Mike, the guy who does our website, he wrote and he said, a few years back, waited almost 2 hours to ride Frozen in Epcot. My 2-year-old loved it. His 2-year-old son loved it, which I was like, you know what? Good on you, man. Like, I probably wouldn't wait that long for Frozen, but
At
like,
least he waited 2 hours for the ride and not 2 hours for the meet and greet.
oh my gosh, yeah,
There were
no.
times where there was like 3 hours to meet those characters, and you're just like, oh man. Even if I had kids, like kids, I'll buy you anything in the park. I don't want to wait 3 hours for this.
Exactly. I wonder too, like if you're one of those cast members, if it's cooler to get a role like an Anna or an Elsa, where you just have so many people who are just like throwing themselves at you, or do you want to be one of like the offshot kind of like characters like that people aren't really sure to approach?
Listen, put me in a suit so people can't see my face and be like, "Oh my god, is it over yet?
Yeah, exactly.
Is still so long?"
Yeah, that I do not. That's why they don't have like. Do they have an Olaf that you could meet? I don't think they have like a tiny little like an actual person Olaf. Like make that animatronic and have him walk out of the ride. People would lose their minds. We'll get there one day thanks to Belle's weird animatronic.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's get into questions here. Let's start with one that's just a little bit of an oddball one, but this one comes in from Anna on Discord. What is your least favorite sensation? Like sound, touch, taste? She's like, don't like squishy things, don't like sound of scraping on chalkboard, etc. Least favorite sensation, Jack?
There is one. So it's very specific, and I don't know how many people are going to know about it. But you know the foam that is on like clothing hangers in stores sometimes?
Yeah.
Or the best example I'll give you. The Mr. Clean magic erasers.
Okay.
I can't touch them. I hate that feeling. I get goosebumps and everything. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the foam itself or whatever. I can't hold it without starting getting goosebumps.
Sure. Okay.
It is.
I like that.
It's. I don't know. I have something, I guess, with just like that foam packaging in general.
Sure.
Because a couple years ago, last year when I was trying to build like a sound box for the microphone, I was using like foam, and like my parents were like, "You look so freaked out right now. You're sweating." It's like I can't touch this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It's just I hate that feeling against my hands. So that for me. That's what it is.
Okay. That's an interesting one. I like how very specific it is. Okay.
Well, I'm thinking about it now. It's like, yeah, that's why just give me a regular sponge to clean stuff. Don't give me the magic erasers. Please don't.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Good to know. All right. Well, we're going to cancel that order for you right now. We usually send everybody one of those. I'm just kidding. That'd be hyper specific too. Yeah. I was trying to think about this too. I guess the one that she said, like the scraping on a chalkboard. I'm not a huge fan of chalk. I really don't I don't like it.
That feeling of the powder, everything else, the residue that stays on your hands.
Yep.
Even in school, usually some of the teachers would have the like chalk holders.
Yep.
And I was always like, you got to give me that. Can't send me up to the board without that.
Yep. I'm also like for writing, I'm a lefty. It's the only thing I do with my left hand. But so I always had like pencil lead like on my hand, and I just hated it because I hated writing anything because every time I get like all smudged and it'd be like, it's like, oh man, this is disgusting. Another thing I really hated as a kid, I'm big on texture with like food and stuff. Like beef stroganoff, like wet noodles have always been weird to me. Like I like spaghetti and stuff, but like there's certain types of noodles when they're like wet, I'm just like, I don't, it like makes me
Yeah,
want to gag. I don't
I,
know why.
I'm kind of a little bit the same way with like lo mein.
Okay,
A
okay,
little bit
sure.
like lo mein, not really the same thing, but like lo mein, it's like it's just a weird type of like noodle. I'm not
Yeah,
really the biggest fan of it.
yeah,
So it's like, but I'm the same way. Like pasta, that's fine. Like, yeah, it's sauce, pasta
yeah,
and sauce, but like, yeah, not the other stuff.
yeah. Yep. All right. Well, I'm glad that we're in agreement here. That's nice.
We can get creeped out about the same things.
Yes, that's what makes a friendship. This one comes in from Missile Mage, and I thought this was a really good question. He always asks great ones, but Pirates of the Caribbean is one of the theme park rides turned into a movie that actually worked. Are there any other rides that you've experienced that you think would be interesting when turned into a movie or any similar form of media?
Well, Universal gets pushed out because it's the complete opposite. They
Yep,
base everything
exactly.
off the movie. So we're gonna talk Disney. Uh, maybe like you can't turn Big Thunder Mountain Railroad into a movie. You could use the basis of it and make it like we're looking for gold. It's here in Big Thunder Mountain, and chase scenes and everything like that. I don't want a movie based on It's a Small World because for various reasons.
Yeah.
If the
Uh,
ride's annoying, imagine what the movie would be.
yeah, that would
Uh,
be intense.
Same song for 2 hours. It's like
Yeah.
the ride itself right now. Um, I, I mean, we could say the Haunted Mansion. Not, you could turn that into a good movie, not
Yeah,
Eddie
exactly.
Murphy movie.
Yeah.
Um, and then I probably, if you had to say pick one, I'd probably say like try to make something based off of Big Thunder Mountain Railroad.
So I think I know the way that we could do it. If anyone who's listening, and you're probably familiar with this too, do the Thunder Mesa stuff from Disneyland Paris, like where
Yeah,
it's tied into
that,
Haunted Mansion. And
that's actually a pretty good idea.
does the movie end in like zombie, terrifying, like Old West though? Like, is that where we end up with that movie? Because that's kind of how Phantom Manor ends. And like, if you tied that in together, I think it would be such a weird and macabre movie, but it could be really cool. Like, it could be really interesting. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know what you do
Well, you
with
know
that.
what? That's always there's your sequel. Oh, we're somehow ended up here now. Now we got to get back home.
Dude,
So
Zombie Apocalypse in the Old West. There you go. That's your
book
sequel.
it.
That's There we go. We've done
There
it.
it is.
For me, I guess I would take like I love Countdown too much. Take the actual Countdown experience, not Dinosaur, and try to like it's like the actual dinosaur movie. Like make it be like some science gone wrong, or just like kind of like trying to bring like I guess it's too Jurassic Parky then if you try to bring dinosaurs into the real world without making them, or it's just like we just brought them
Well,
here and
yeah. What you could do is you have a team of scientists go back. That really hasn't been
uh,
done before. In a movie. At least I can't recall one. So
like,
you could do like a team trying to bring back because something's happening in the current day, and the only way to save something is to go back in time.
yeah,
And
that'd be
then
cool.
of course, things always go wrong, and now they have to figure out a way to get back home.
Yeah, it'd be like that TV show Terra Nova kind of, but like a
Pretty
good
much,
movie.
some way, yeah.
The other one I thought of is just because we were talking about it earlier, but it's something I really would love to see and this would have to be PG-13, a straight like horror like Expedition Everest movie where they're like
I,
climbing the mountain and there's somebody who's like, we gotta get to the top of the mountain. There's gotta be good stuff there. Like there's something I gotta get up there, and the Yeti is just like constantly chasing them down, and you don't see it much, but when you do, you're like, oh my gosh, like it's really there and it's messing people up.
yeah,
Ugh.
that's not a bad idea. I actually wouldn't mind that. They should do something like that.
Why don't they? Come on, Disney. Yeah, just because it wouldn't sell as well as the Marvels. Like
True.
Iron Man takes on the Yeti. Like people would go see that. And the last question that comes in from him: what are your favorite parts of the theme parks that aren't rides? Got anything you like besides the rides?
Uh, well, if we're not talking about the rides themselves, probably the areas and how detailed they are.
Yeah,
So, like, we talked about, like, obviously, like Avatar and its land over there. Pandora's pretty well themed. I like the whole concept they have. Uh, like Harry Potter, it's probably the best example where, like, Diagon Alley and Hogsmeade, you know, you feel like you're in that world.
yeah,
You feel like you're part of that book, that movie, that TV show that you've watched. You're not just seeing it, you're actually part of it and you can do stuff in it. But if we're talking not just about the ride, it depends on the soundtrack. Disney obviously has a lot of good soundtracks for their attractions. I feel
yeah,
like a really good soundtrack helps build into the story they're telling.
Agreed.
And some rides don't have it. Some rides are just hit and miss, and you just go, it takes away from it at times.
Yeah. No, totally. I totally get you. Uh, for me, I obviously theming, I think, is the big thing. I agree with you totally there. I think, and this might sound really stupid, I love just being in the parks at night. I think two that spring to mind right away are World Showcase over at Epcot, and then also being in Frontierland at night. There's something about these places that once the primary sense that you're using all the time starts to get taken away a little bit, it just makes everything seem way more magical and way more believable. Like, you can't see any types of weird faults or details that you might not like. It's just all like, you're just in this world, and it feels like you're like, yeah, man, I'm in like the Old West right now for just like a hot moment. You're like, this is pretty cool. Like, so just getting immersed in that and just breathing it in, I think. And I'll say this too, the cast members, Disney is the best in the world at this. And I was only at Universal for a day, but the greatest Universal cast member doesn't come close to like the worst Disney cast member for me. Like, all the Disney ones were like, they make the trip. Like, they make it just like another thing. And they are like, if they're in character, they're still always in character. If they're not, like, and they're trying to help you, they're the friendliest people on the planet. They will talk to you for hours, and they will just like, they know how to hold conversations and just try to make your experience way better. And I think that's one of my things that I just love doing, that meeting new people down there, other families who are down there too. That's a lot of fun. And just, you're all there for the same reason. You're all there to have fun and just have a good time. And that camaraderie really sometimes shines through. And I love it. I love
Yeah,
it so much.
I agree. I agree with you. I don't really think about that as much because, I don't do the interactiveness with the characters at the parks because,
Sure.
it's weird for me to be like, hey, Donald, let's take a picture, with like a
Yeah.
30-year-old man. It's really weird. But you are right. Disney does go above and beyond for that for a lot of reasons. That is one of their biggest draws for the parks, besides, the area, the theming, the rides themselves, is you get to meet these characters. So obviously Disney wants people who want to play those characters. And
Yep.
they always do a very good job on going above and beyond, not just for, one person, but for anybody they meet.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I give them that. And I think that's what makes a lot of the trips more special,
Oh,
because
yeah.
sometimes it's a unique interaction that not everybody has. So,
Yep.
it's something I don't really see at Universal Parks, but that's because they don't have the characters, or, they don't really have as many meet and greets as
Yep.
Disney does.
Yep. And like, it's what's going to stick with me. Like, my last trip, I got to go on, my last day, I did all four parks, but in the beginning of the day, I went on countdown. To start off, I beat everybody else out and down the stairs. They sent me off by myself. So I rode countdown first before anybody else in a vehicle by myself. And then
Nice.
when I went for my second time, one of the cast members was like, hey, sweetie, do you want to like ride this again? I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, come here. So she had me step off and then just step back on the next truck or whatever, and she's just like, the next row over, and she's like, there you go. And I was like, that made my friggin' day. It wasn't much of anything, but I like cut the line so much that I was just like, huh, and then just right back on it. I was like, yeah, like, I was just so
Hey,
stoked. And
listen, if you can take it, because you never know when you get that opportunity
I
again.
know, yeah, I was like,
So I'd be the same way.
Yep. Even if it's a 10-minute wait, 5-minute wait, the fact that I didn't have to walk through the whole thing again, I was just like, oh yeah, baby. Like, I'm just like, yeah, this is just one of my favorite attractions. It's just like being the adult version of the kid, because I'm a Disney, he said it himself, it's for kids and kids at heart. And I'm a kid at heart. And I was just like, I am taking this opportunity immediately. And when you're hanging out single or solo and you walk around these places, sometimes you get some special preferential treatment. So you indulge in that, friend. You just be like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to take this for me. The family of 8 couldn't do that. They wouldn't be like, all right, family of 8, you want to come off and hop on the next one? It's like, no, it's like, but for just me, they can be like, get right back on, kid. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. Thank you. Well, thank you guys so much for writing in. Those were excellent questions. If you guys ever have a question or a topic for the show, all you have to do is tweet the hashtag community, community feedback. Right to do that. We're doing Critical Podcast. Tweet the hashtag Critical Podcast to me. You can tweet at our official account, which is @GoCritical, capital G, capital C. Or you can tweet at me personally. I'm at JimmyGood013. But if you'd like to tweet a question or a thought over to Jack, where would they do that?
You can reach us at TPH YouTube, because I couldn't fit Theme Park History as a Twitter handle.
That's okay. I was like looking it up a few times, and I kept thinking, I was like, is he on here, right? And I was like looking it up, I'm like, oh, there it is. Like, I love your logo. It's very great movie ride to me.
Yeah,
Uh,
I've always been a big fan of Universal Studios, so that's their original OG logo for the park. And it's like, I'll take that because I don't like the globe. It doesn't work well, but
yeah,
whatever.
it's not as much of an attraction, I don't think,
Yeah,
as that's fine. I
pretty much.
totally with you there. Yeah, let's see. If you want to hang out with myself or Levi anytime, you come on hang out with us over on twitch.tv / critical reviews. We're streaming over there. He's going through Resident Evil 2 remake, which he's been terrified but also enjoying. I'm like, he said he wanted it, so we got it for him. So he's going to review it, but he's been playing through it slowly and surely and swearing the whole way. It's just like he runs into something. He was unloading into the Tyrant or Mr. X, and
Yeah.
I like typed in the chat. I'm like, dude, stop! Like you're wasting ammo. Like he was just like shooting him, just like he's on one knee. And he's like, I'll get him, and I'm like, no. So he's been working his way through that. If you want to support the show, you can head over to our Spreadshirt, and that's just one great way of doing it. But this week, instead of promoting ourselves and all the people who, their names are probably popping up here, the people who do the theme music and Yorn who does the art and our Patreon, I'd rather, just go check out theme park history. So, Jack, tell us about theme park history. For people who haven't seen it or enjoyed it like I have, how would you describe it?
So I describe us as a channel that covers theme parks, everything to do with theme parks, old and new, big and small. It's the only time I'll get to plug the slogan.
I love it. I love hearing it live.
Basically, what we do is we break down the history of theme park attractions and shows, and eventually down the line, I'd like to cover the history of theme parks themselves. So what we basically do is we look at attractions that are from Disney, Universal, and other parks eventually, and we talk about how they gone from concept to being built. We talk about the ride itself, and if the ride's closed, where it's gone through changes. We talk about why it closed and what changes have been made. So basically, we give you a breakdown on some of your favorite attractions you've gone on as a kid or you've gone on as of yesterday.
That's so cool. Like I said before, obviously you guys know I'm a big theme park guy. I love Disney, but I've really enjoyed getting to watch some of the ones that I know about, some of the ones that I don't know anything about, and some of the ones that I just don't know the entire history of. And you guys do such a good job of not only talking about the history of it, but also going through what it would be like to ride the ride and kind of showing, video from that. So it does feel like a really nice play by play of like, oh, the past, the present of it, if it's still around, and then kind of like the reception and what's not necessarily what's going to happen with it, but what the plans are, if any, to kind of change it up in the future. And it's just so comprehensive and it's so well put together. And I just, every time one of those pops up, I'm like, oh, and like this most recent one, like Expedition Everest, great intros. Jack, you just do the best intros. You really do. Like, and not just this last one, but the other ones too. Like you do such a good job of making each one, like with your title card, putting something else there. And I really appreciate it as someone who's watched like a ton of them in a row. I'm just like, man, he's just something different every time, man. Like that's a lot of work. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you, because half the time when I do those intros, I'm like, oh man, it's crap.
No,
It's like,
dude.
I just feel like, okay, this is funny to me. This is interesting to me. How are the viewers going to take it? So like Expedition Everest, I was like, this is really funny. I'm going to put the Yeti from Monsters Inc. in there and his quote, "Welcome to the Himalayas." And I was like, okay, I think that's funny. I don't think anybody else would. And then a lot of people like that intro. So I always feel like with our videos, you got to find a way to draw people in. So the intros, you got like 30 seconds to kind of
Yeah.
do that for people. And, that's what I kind of focus on. And then you mentioned too, the ride portion. Not everybody can get to the parks to experience the rides. Some of them are closed, so people have never gotten to experience them. So we try to go not as detailed as possible, but we give you the cliff notes of what happens,
Yeah.
and we try to put it like you're there for those moments. So
Yep.
I always feel like we can do better. It's like anything else. You work on improving, but it's nice to hear people like your intros are good, and I'm like good because I always feel like that's like the worst part of my videos.
No,
So
your intros that's one of my favorite things about your videos. And this most recent one, it works really well on top of the fact that it's like all this like dramatic music and it's like showing the ride and all the scary stuff. And then at the end, you're like, oh, he's gonna show the Yeti. And then it's
it's
just
gonna show,
welcome to the
yeah.
Himalayas. Like it's just like bravo. I'm like, this, and it's
Yeah.
perfect. It plays in because it's Disney. Like it all works
Yeah.
together, and it's just like great little bait and switch there. I'm just waiting for Disco Yeti or whatever, and it's just like, nope, we're doing something different here. And I'm like, yes, like good on you, man. So, yes, please, even if you have a passing interest in any theme park stuff ever, this is one of the most comprehensive places and most fun, ways to consume this stuff because there's a lot of information you're throwing at us, but it's not just still images. There's a lot of video in there too. So it really hits on a lot of different levels and it makes like 17 minutes fly by. I'm just like, oh, I like to save those for like a meal. So I like sit down and like have a meal and I'm going to watch this and, learn and eat this. And when it's done, I'm going to be like, oh, that's perfect. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I've been told meals. I've been told people watch it at work. I've been told
Yep.
people binged it instead of studying. I said, listen, you can't hold me responsible for failing your test.
Exactly.
It's not fair. Go study. Go stay in school. Don't watch. You can watch my videos after you pass your test.
Yeah. Well, is the best way to support you just going to subscribe to the channel or just like
Yeah,
or comment on stuff?
if you're interested, you can always just check out the channel. Uh, I don't remember the URL. I know it's theme park history, but the way YouTube changes your URLs is always different. If you just search theme park history on YouTube, we're usually the first channel and a couple of videos there. You can check us out there if you're interested. You can always subscribe. We try to release a video every 2 weeks. Sometimes I'm off by a couple of days here and there, but it depends on what we're covering. And I can tell you what I'm covering in March if you're interested.
Oh, definitely
Because
interested.
you let me on your show, I can give you a hint on what's going to come.
Yes. I would love that.
So we recently did a poll for one attraction we're going to cover in March. We got over 10,000 votes,
Oh my
and
gosh.
over half. I know, I couldn't believe it. And the more ridiculous thing is that over half of them want the Simpsons ride.
Oh my gosh.
So we're going to cover that, and it's going to be interesting because a lot of people don't want me to cover it because they don't think it's that great of an attraction.
Sure.
It's people like myself who are still bitter that Back to the Future the ride's closed.
Yeah, I get that.
But that's at the end of the month of March.
Cool.
The
That's
first
really
video
cool.
we're covering is we didn't really speak about it, but it is a Disney mountain. It hasn't really been covered on YouTube that much,
Oh my
and
gosh.
it is a classic. Unfortunately, it's not your shirt,
No, it's not my shirt.
but it is Splash Mountain.
Yes. Yes. Splash Mountain's my second favorite mountain. Oh, yes.
So there's a lot of information. There's 3 different versions of the ride. I'm currently working on it. So I think people will be happy. I think people will be happy with the intro because I already found it, and it's one of the most interesting things. Well, I think it's interesting. Other people might not, but I think
Okay.
it's going to leave people like with their jaws open once they watch it. So,
I'm so
but
stoked. I hope.
that is the schedule for March right now. Is Splash Mountain and Simpsons, completely 2 different like 2 different things as far away as possible as you can get for theme park attractions.
Oh my
So
gosh. And I love, but they are also both based around animation though. So there's that at least kind of going for them. That's like their only like through line.
pretty much, but you have like Splash Mountain, which is like been around for 30 years and
Yeah.
it's classic. And then you have The Simpsons, which has been around for 30 years, but it's like completely different, it pokes fun of itself as a theme park ride when Splash Mountain is like a classic theme park attraction. So
Yep. Tell me you found the zippity doodah slip wrap.
no, that's it. That's the intro.
Was it really? Did I guess it?
Yes. Well, it was going to be that where there's like the special that has Ernest goes to Splash Mountain and he
Oh
becomes
my,
to Splash or not. But I think I'm going to save that for a part in the video itself.
I
But
think that's smart. I didn't even know that.
the rap right now is that because I don't remember watching that as a kid. And I show that to my sister. I'm like, what do you think of this as the intro? She goes, are you kidding me? I said, that's the point. I'm going to show that because people are going to go, Disney did this. This isn't just like some type of joke.
It's so weird. And I just
Yeah.
found it recently and I was like, what is like some of the stuff they did in the back of the day to like market stuff? I was like, what were you guys even thinking? Like, it was like, okay. Like,
Dude, it was like it was the 80s and early 90s. That was hip and cool at the time, I guess.
yep,
So,
it's okay.
but yeah, well, now people have an idea what we're going to be working on.
A little
But,
bit. That's so cool.
yeah, but I figured we've been trying to do different attractions and everything, and I figured we do one that we haven't covered, and then we let the fans vote, and
I
then
think that's
we're going to be doing that again sometime down the year. So
cool. That's so cool, man. I love that. That's like because the reason like we get to do any of this stuff is because there's a bunch of people out there who are willing to take time and like actually sit down and watch these things, and that's so cool to
Oh
have
yeah,
you give
yeah.
back to them in that way.
It's amazing because you be like people put their stories in the comments section, like their first time going on rides
Yeah,
or like why they love the ride, and it's like there's like people like us, it's not just like I don't create the videos just so people can like, oh, great video, can you cover this? To hear people's stories, it's like nice because like people they agree with like like if I did Space Mountain, I'm pretty sure people would gush over Space Mountain and talk about it, and that's great because I want to hear that. So for me, it's like connecting with the viewers on like theme park rides that everybody grew up with,
yep.
and that's to me that's the best part is that like we're all fans in one way or the other. So
Exactly. And that's why like I've tried to implement some theme park stuff in here. We've been doing this thing with my sister, my twin sister. We do this little show called Disney Duo where we talk about our previous experiences with the parks and stuff. And doing that has been so much fun just because I just get to relive my memories with her growing up, getting to go down there and being really lucky and privileged to do that. And man, just like it bonds you to people just going on these things and talking about this and just being like, oh man, you like Haunted Mansion? I love Haunted Mansion. Or like you like Pirates of the Caribbean? I freaking love Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, just going on about that and saying like, hey man, this was like a ride and it wasn't a movie, but most people know it as a movie and they're like, oh, they made a ride based on it. It's like, no, that's not how it went. Like, you
that's
kidding
when,
me?
that's when you go, excuse me, you're wrong.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it is. So, but you're right. It's like you find ways to connect with people that you didn't think you would. That was the same thing like at my job where it's like I know one guy, him and his son constantly go to Disney, whether it's the California or the Florida version, and then he found out I did the channel, and now it's like, oh yeah, like really good job on that. It's like I didn't know this and that. It's like it opens up because then you find out stuff that otherwise, you wouldn't really talk about to people.
Yeah,
So
for sure. It
you
all
know,
just connects us. It
it
connects
it
us. I love
listen,
it.
for me at work, it beats talking about like, hey, it's gonna snow tomorrow. It's
Yeah,
like
for sure,
yeah.
dude. For
So
sure.
now it's
Way
like,
better.
and I was like, he's like, hey, what do you think of like Galaxy's Edge? Do I go when it opens or do I wait? It's like you go when you wait.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah,
so
for sure. I find that my problem now is that if anyone tells me they're taking a trip to Florida, my first question is like, "You going to like Central Florida?" And then if they don't say Central Florida, I usually let it go.
yeah,
But
where
if
it's
they're like, "Yeah, I'm going to Central Florida," I'm like, "Oh, it's like going to like Disney or anything?" And they're like,
yeah,
"Oh yeah, we're planning on like a day," and I'm like, "Let's talk about that." Like,
yeah. Where usually when people that they go, "Kiss me?" You go, "Yeah." Like if they say what, then you know that they might not be going to where they're supposed to go because it's right there near all the parks.
yep,
So,
exactly,
but,
exactly. Well, like I said, if you guys are watching this, please go check out Theme Park History. There's going to be a link down below, and there'll be a link up in the corner here too. So please go over there, tell them Jimmy sent you, and you won't be disappointed. Like seriously, there's a lot you guys have done, and so many cool rides, and so much of that promotional footage I love that you found, like just old, just like, oh yeah, Brendan Fraser was doing this thing for the Mummy or whatever, and you're like, oh my gosh, what did they make him do for this thing? Like, there's so much stuff, and I had no idea that existed. So it's really fun for me to get to watch that sort of stuff. So thank you for making this stuff, man. I appreciate it. It's cool. It's really cool.
well,
So
yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate it. Usually it's like I said, I'm just a fan. I'm a
yeah,
fan of theme parks, and I, I, I just want people to know the attractions that I grew up with. I want them to know the history because there's more than just going on the ride, you
yeah,
know, and it's a rabbit hole you could fall down
oh
like
yeah,
for hours and hours. And I think doing this as well, and we've seen it from a couple of people who've worked on these attractions, you have an appreciation of what they do. And it's not just like we put something together. No, there's everything that goes into it, what the rides can consist of, the buildings, the animatronics, the system, what you have to do in order to create these rides that make memories that we don't forget. And I feel
mhm,
like they don't get remembered as much. So I feel like we do this and we want to preserve the legacy of the attractions. And when I can, I mention their names as much as possible.
yeah,
'Cause without those people, like an example, Tony Baxter and Joe Rohde,
yep.
we don't have these attractions that we grew up with from Disney.
Yep.
So
Yep, the Bob Gurrs of the world out there, they
exactly.
thank you. He's just
Yeah.
like, "Thank you guys for doing this." Because we all think it's just Walt, and I'm sure Walt would be the first to be like, "Yeah, no, I had like some of these ideas, but like these are the guys, like they made it."
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
talk to these guys. Um, Yeah, that's so cool. I appreciate that you do that. For people who are watching this show, if you are interested, because we like to do a hashtag once in a while at the end of a show that you could tweet at us, just tweet the hashtag theme park history. Let's make that a thing. Just so we know that you're listening in. Well, a few people might do it, but I want people to just go check out the channel more than anything else because I highly recommend it. It's something that I'm subscribed to, and I'm always checking it out. I'm like, oh yes, there's another one. Or I'm kind of going back to the kind of the catalog because I'm sure I've missed a few and just finding out more about some of these things I just wouldn't necessarily know anything about anyway. So, Jack, thank you once again so much for being on. I appreciate it a lot, and thanks for giving us a little sneak peek as to what's to come. Oh, I'm stoked, man! Splash Mountain, yes,
Yeah,
so excited.
it's gonna be a doozy because it's just there's a lot there. But thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure talking to you. It's very nice because we just didn't cover theme parks. We covered a lot more stuff that I usually don't get a chance to talk about.
Yes,
So
that's the whole point. That's why I love having guests on like this because I like to think that you get to, you don't have to be like fully like chained or enslaved to just the one thing all the time because you like more than just theme parks, and stuff. Like you probably not that you have to, but it's just usually if you're passionate about one of these things, you're kind of passionate about a lot of these other things too. So
yep.
that's always a good thing. And to everybody watching, thank you so much. We do appreciate it. And until next week, just remember to adapt and overcome. We'll see you next time. Bye.